Right, folks, this is a new podcast from the two mics, and I'm going to give you old energy boy MG to introduce it.
Yeah, we've edited out all the nonsense from Mike Porky Parry, so it might be a bit shorter than usual.
Ha, 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 ha.
Talk Sport on DAB Digital Radio and 1089 and 1053 AM. The enduring home of football.
It's modern radio, only better.
Talk Sport.
It's time to say a very good evening to Mr. Mike Porky Parry. Very good evening to you, Mr. Parry.
And a very good evening to you, MG, and it's good to be here again on Talk Radio. Another
slightly less harassed than last night.
Slightly less harassed, you're absolutely right, and we've got a fizzing firework of a show ahead of us. Now, I must make it absolutely clear that I start here with the campaign of the night, which is against flip-flops.
Yes.
People wearing flip-flops in normal, everyday business. A liability.
It's a growing concern.
It's outrageous.
Yeah.
People should not expose their feet in public.
Do you think it's a non-sock issue as well?
Of course it's a non-sock issue, but it's more just an idle issue. It's a lazy issue, and it's a kind of, look how trendy I am issue.
Yeah.
I was walking behind a bloke today, okay? Yeah. And London is a fast-moving town.
You must have been quite close to him if you stood on his flip-flop.
No, well, I'm telling you, London is a fast-moving town.
Yeah.
So if I'm moving at a faster pace than the person in front of me, sometimes you come up very close to them.
Yeah, but you see, that's a personal space issue, which I would have a problem with as well.
Yeah, but in a crowded railway station, there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
Right, so the guy in front didn't remove his left leg from where it was on the floor quickly enough.
Yeah.
I trod on his flip-flop.
Yeah.
But
that means you were awfully close to him.
It doesn't. If you think about it, if my left foot was extended and his left leg was behind him, I wasn't close to him at all. It's just that he'd lifted his heel.
Well, you must be within a yard of him. You're within a yard of him.
No. Well, maybe a yard, yeah. And the front toe piece of his shoe then rested on the back of his flip-flop. Yeah. So he then almost stumbles, turns round, starts trying to give me a hard time. And I said, don't you start on me, pal. Yeah. I said, you shouldn't be walking around in flip-flops. I said, they're dangerous, they're unhealthy, and you're a jerk. And I walked off.
And what did he do then? Well, it's the sort of thing that get you into trouble, though.
Well, no, he was having a go at me, and it was his fault. He'd caused the problem.
But you could have sort of flip-flop rage or something. I mean, the guy might turn around and smack you.
I think other people should have flip-flop rage, because what I think is, I mean, it's ludicrous. And do you know why? Another reason why I bumped into him. If you've got a sensible pair of shoes on, like I always wear, if I'm, going about my business.
But if you're wearing shorts, for example, which I presume he was.
He was, you're absolutely, and a vest, by the way. And a singlet vest.
That's another thing you don't like.
Yeah. And a rucksack, by the way.
A rucksack too.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, but if you're wearing, shorts, you're then going to wear sort of boat shoes, or you're going to wear tennis shoes or sneakers or something like that.
That's up to the individual.
But you're not going to wear brogues and a pair of socks, are you?
That's up to the individual. But what I'm saying is, I had spotted this guy about 3 yards away from him, urging him to get out of my way because I was busy.
No.
And the thing is, he was walking at a very slow pace because you know what he was doing?
What was he doing?
He was using his big toe and his second toe to curl around the one bit of rubber that a flip-flop hangs onto your foot on. And he was having to walk very slowly because he clearly didn't have a comfortable relationship with his footwear.
Well, you can't walk that quickly with flip-flops.
Of course you can't. That's what I'm saying. Flip-flops are for ambling along the, what do we call it in America? The sidewalk. Not the sidewalk. The
boardwalk.
The boardwalk, thank you. Ambling along the boardwalk next to the
Brava
beach.
or something.
Or the Costa Brava or something like that. They are not for a busy railway station in the middle of one of the biggest metropolises in the world.
Your feet would get
where
filthy
people are
as well,
moving around. Your feet get filthy. You're a filthy person. If you wear flip-flops, then I'm sorry, but there's something wrong, missing. If your head and your brain is a jigsaw puzzle, you've got a piece of your puzzle missing, pal, if you're walking around in flip-flops.
Well, there are certainly places where you'll see, even in sort of coastal resorts, you'll see no flip-flops. Please wear shirts at all sorts of times.
Quite right, absolutely.
They don't want you in the bar or in the restaurant if you're just wearing flip-flops.
I think it's outrageous, honestly, and I think there should be some sort of a law against it. Like, for instance, I would never allow any person into my shop.
I thought you were a bit of a libertarian, though.
I would never allow anybody into my shop who didn't have a shirt on. Yeah. I'd be very loath to allow them into my shop if they had a single, singlet type thing on.
You know, when I was in Mallorca, there were people going into supermarkets without shirts on.
Right.
Which I thought was pretty disgusting.
And do they allow that, then?
They apparently did,
Disgusting. Supposing a bead of perspiration...
Standing by the fresh vegetables.
Yeah, exactly. Supposing a bead of perspiration comes off your body, you'd have to close the whole store down because it's contaminated, isn't it?
Well,
contaminated.
It's not a good thing.
It's not a good thing. It's good. But anyway, look,
I mean, I'm with you. I can see how you get upset by these things, and I don't disagree with what you're saying. But I think you start making laws about it, because when you start making laws about it, then you get mad council people coming around fining people for wearing flip-flops.
Well, I'm not sure that I'd be against that. I'm not sure I'd be against that. What I'd like to see is I'd like to see more understanding of social grace.
Yeah.
Social grace is the way to do it. People who walk around in flip-flops...
A bit of etiquette.
Yeah, are arrogant individuals. They're either arrogant or they're thick, okay? arrogant.
Or maybe they just want to have cool feet.
No. You don't get cool feet. You get messy, dirty, filthy feet, and you are a nuisance to society. And you've got to remember, I've had campaigns like this before, and I've won them. So we can win this one, okay?
I can't remember the last campaign you won.
Well, I have, believe me, on social media.
I mean, you've had campaigns against rucksackers, which are still very high on your list of people that should be taken away somewhere.
Or charged double to travel on public transport because they take up twice as much space. You're
not keen on cyclists. You was explaining to Victoria there, just before she went home, even though she's cycling home to Hackney, that you're not keen on cyclists.
Yes, but Victoria looks like a responsible young woman who cycles in the right sort of fashion. She says she doesn't use cycle lanes because there aren't anywhere she goes.
Yeah.
And I'm all for that.
Well, that's the irony of the whole cycling lane argument.
Of course.
Where most places you go, there aren't any cycle lanes.
No, I'm all for cyclists because I think that if you want to use your bodily strength to propel yourself from A to B, that's a very, very good thing.
Yeah.
What I disagree about with cyclists is the arrogance of the cycling lobby who have taken £500 million out of the economy of London to build them special routes, which A, they don't seem to be using very much, and B, are questionable in their use to the economy of this city.
Imagine a cyclist wearing flip-flops and a rucksack.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be the triple whammy for you, wouldn't it?
Certainly would be,
You'd just have to push them into the hedge.
But anyway, look...
Did you see that story, by the way, today about somebody's hedge being stolen? Apparently this is the new thing. People come in and steal hedges. Yeah,
they don't actually steal the hedge. They stole 60 conifer trees, which make up the hedge.
Well, yeah, but the hedge effectively has disappeared.
Well, it has, indeed. I mean, this has happened to me. I had a house once down in Stockbroker Belt, actually, funny enough. In fact, I think I've still got it, actually.
Have you?
And,
well, you rent it out.
Yes. And
this is part of the answer of the question that will never be answered.
Yeah, well, exactly. And what happened was, the first thing I did when I got in there is that new houses these days don't come with a garden.
Yeah.
They come with it's a battlefield. Honestly, they leave half-broken bricks, broken
they just chuck
sinks.
Stuff there, yeah.
Yeah, they do, honestly, when they move out, and then it's up to you to garden it. So the first thing I did was I laid a lawn.
Yeah.
Then I realised this was not such a good idea because the drainage situation didn't seem to be that good and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
So I then had a bloke come in and replace the lawn with...
A patio.
A patio, they're absolutely right. And they had to dig a big 6-foot deep hole.
You've still got to do drainage all around that.
No. They dig a big 6-foot deep hole in the middle of what used to be the lawn.
Yeah.
And it's quite circular. It's the size of King Arthur's Round Table in its circumference, right?
Right.
And then they build the patio flags towards that. You see what I mean? And put a drain on top of it.
Okay.
It's very well done, and that drains off. Having said that, what happened then was I thought, now I need some cover for the side of the garden.
Right. So there was no fence or anything.
Well, there was a brick wall up to about 4 feet and then nothing.
Right.
But the brick wall up to 4 feet went to the next level of the development. So if you see what I mean, I had a level playing field 4 feet up. You see what I mean?
Right.
And there was only just like a chicken wire fence there. No, it's no good for me.
No.
So I
planted.
You
can't just buy an instant hedge, can you?
You can't. Yeah, I think I bought 30 trees.
Right.
And
that's a bit expensive.
Fast growing, and within 18 months I had a beautiful hedge.
Yeah.
No doubt about it. And once they interlock together, you can't steal them.
And is this the thing that people are stealing, though?
Yeah, but they steal them when they're young, you see, because they're just saplings then, and
well,
they
how
take
much
them
are
all
they
away.
worth then? Are they worth a lot of money?
I think they
hundreds, thousands.
Well, I think if you buy them from a garden centre, I think they cost about £85 each.
Right.
So 60 at 85.
60.
10. Yeah, he lost about 60 trees, this guy. So that's 650. So it's about £5,000.
That's a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Worth stealing.
Yeah.
No wonder they're doing it.
Yeah.
No wonder they're doing it. Now, coming up in this show tonight, we're going to be talking to lots of different people. We're going to talk to a guy called Ian Silvera, senior politics reporter at International Business Times, because you might have seen today Jeremy Corbyn launched his digital manifesto. Yeah. And he's already been getting pelters from people because he hasn't thought about online abuse. Apparently, it doesn't seem to make any sense.
Right.
People are very unsure about what exactly he's talking about.
I don't really understand this,
Well, no, I know you don't. Well, I know that
I'm glad our experts coming on to explain.
Well, I can talk you through it. It's why because because you and I have different skills, you see, and I can explain to you precisely what he should have said.
Yeah.
But one of the problems that you will understand that he had is that when he was giving his digital manifesto, he was live streaming it, right, so that people could watch it from afar all over the country, and it broke down. So that's not a very good start, is it? If you're going to digitally stream something live, then you better make sure it works. Also, we will be talking as well about what's happening in the papers tomorrow. Danny Kelly's going to join us, TalkSport host, former editor of NME.
We're going to look forward to Friday, which is the anniversary of the Fire of London.
That's right.
And also, we're going to discuss the situation regarding the Red Baron, who's the most famous fighter pilot of all time.
I suppose he is.
Because 100 years from tomorrow, he shot down his first victims. And when I say victims...
When you say victims, his adversaries, surely.
They were two men in the Royal Flying Corps, as it was in those days. There was no RAF. It was a branch of the army.
Right.
And one was a Welshman, and one was an Englishman.
Really?
And so this week there's going to be an anniversary between the three families. How about that?
That's
German,
very interesting.
English, Welsh.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, fantastic.
Tom Stainer's going to join us from Camera. I almost got a job with them once.
Oh, right, okay. Is he going to talk to us about all these pubs closing down?
Pubs closing down, yeah, because of the
not for the normal reason. Not for the normal reason. The normal reason is, they're too expensive to run these days and beer's becoming too cheap in supermarkets. This is because the people who own the property the pubs are in are closing them down to turn them into flats.
Exactly.
Because you make more money out of a block of flats than you do out of a pub.
Yeah. Exactly right. And Ken Lovett's going to join us about Mr. Chapman as well, Mark Chapman, who was refused parole for the 9th time.
Excellent.
The guy who killed John Lennon.
Yeah.
Because we always talk about something to do with the Beatles on
Indeed.
the show. Ian in Krakow has sent a picture in of a fantastic shop, which you would love. He says, is this where Porky stocks up on his visits to his property empire in Krakow? So there it is. It's a Pierre Cardin shop.
That. Yeah, that's very good. Well done. That's in the same square, I think, believe it or not.
Well, where you've got a place.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's only kind of one square in Krakow. It's very big from one end to the other. But... another one here. I love wearing my flip-flops. I'm dreading the cooler weather, says Sushi.
Yes.
Sushi, that's nice names.
Yes.
Yeah. And then somebody going on about how can you take Mr. Corbyn seriously when he can't reserve a seat on a train.
Well, there is that problem,
that's
isn't it?
That's a bit political, isn't it,
well,
really?
It is a bit. I mean, we could do politics on the show.
Yeah, but we are apolitical. We are apolitical.
Well, I wouldn't say I'm apolitical.
No.
I would say I'm not party political, which is not the same thing.
Yes.
But I'm not apolitical in the sense that, we're all affected by politics. Our lives are affected by them. I mean, you have to be very careful when you start calling for bans on things, because you'll end up having some kind of totalitarian type state.
I don't want to ban on anything.
In North Korea, do you see where old Kim Jong-un has assassinated somebody again or executed them by the use of an anti-aircraft gun?
Which he's done before, hasn't he?
Yeah.
But the other information that I loved seeing out of North Korea well, first of all, the ambassador who quit, who defected.
Yes.
The ambassador was the ambassador to London? He was the ambassador to London, yeah. And they had that sort of weird house, didn't they, somewhere in Ealing? Wasn't it? Wasn't that the embassy?
Was it Ealing?
I think it was Ealing,
I think it was somewhere sort of less than Mayfair, wasn't
it? Definitely less than Mayfair. So he could. Now, he's thought to have serviced in South Korea.
Yeah.
But you see what the national government in North Korea now say? First of all, he is human scum. That was the first one.
Yes.
Now he's a child molester who was fleeing the authorities.
Yeah.
He's also an international spy for the Americans and has been for years.
Yeah.
He's abused his own children. He's a bigamist and has married more than 2 women while in England under the influence of Western filth and all this kind of stuff. Yeah.
Right.
So he's having a good time. But the one I really liked was, it said they've laid another 1,000 mines in no man's land between North Korea and South Korea,
Right.
And they say this is because they want to keep the imperial dogs from the West out of their country.
Yeah.
The American expert says, no. He says so many North Korean soldiers have escaped across that no man's land to South Korea.
It's actually to stop them going.
Yeah, deserting the North Korean army. That he's got to keep them out. Yeah. Oh, well, he's a character. But
He certainly is.
Do you know the West don't really want rid of him because he is he's a very
convenient bogeyman, isn't he?
Convenient bogeyman. They can focus all their attention on one nutter to whom they've got to deal with.
Right.
So, for instance,
and he's not actually that dangerous.
No, exactly. He's a complete buffoon.
Yeah.
But every time he tries something else, the West think, oh, that's interesting. If somebody who had a brain did that, we'd have a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Or not so much a brain, but possibly a nuclear weapon.
A nuclear weapon.
Because most of the time when he fires his sort of rockets off somewhere, they just crash into the sea.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now, how about this from Neil? He says nothing wrong with t-shirts, shorts, and flip-flops at night following a bath or a shower, and you amble down to the local taverna, pub or restaurant.
I totally disagree. Somebody ambled into my local taverna or restaurant. If it was in Rhodes in Greece, no problem.
Yeah.
If it was in Epping Forest, I'd want you to leave because you got obnoxious, odour-ridden feet, and you shouldn't be in there. There's a lovely picture here.
There could be an issue there, yeah.
Lovely picture here from Gaz B, and I have to say, I can forgive him for this one. He's got a pair of flip-flops. Look at those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they're a pair of Spurs flip-flops.
Yeah, and that doesn't make them better.
It doesn't make them better, but I mean, at least there's a purpose for having them. Not just a pair of filthy flip-flops.
Well, you wouldn't want to wear those to go to a football match, though, would you?
No, of course I wouldn't. But I bet he doesn't either. He probably ambles around the house in them. It's fine.
William said, Porky says, I still had a house in the stockbroker belt. In fact, I still might have.
Yeah,
He's got so many houses, he can't recall
No, it's not that. It's all about portfolios and things like that. Don't worry about that. Yeah.
No, I'm not worried about it.
Yeah.
William says this, education is already on a downward spiral. Get rid of rucksacks carried by every school child, and homework. I don't know why he wants to get rid of homework, but it may be that there's more of that tweak to follow.
Oh dear, I don't know about that. Homework I always thought was good.
Well, do you know that most of the kids
in measures,
most of the kids who go to my kids' schools carry rucksacks, and they're so heavy because they're weighed down by books and stuff. They have to take books to school, which I find in this digital age quite extraordinary. They're still having to carry all these books around.
I was so bright, I didn't really have to do any homework.
Right.
I just picked up on Academica.
Yeah. Is this why you failed and dropped out of the College of Further Education that you were attending?
Well, no, not really. It's just that I found it so boring, And by the way, most students are deadbeat bums.
But you wouldn't accept, presumably, the fact that somebody knew more than you did, so the teacher was presumably to you already a pompous oaf.
Well, I never accepted in many situations that the teacher did know more than me. I mean, for instance, economics, right? I worked out at a very early age when I was doing economics A-level that economics was actually common sense on how the country works.
Yeah.
It was nothing to do with maths. It was nothing to do with figures. It was nothing to do about how strange economic theories like Keynesian.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I said. It wasn't about how that worked against, some other economic philosophy. It was literally all about what is the real cost of a price of milk. You know what I mean?
Well, it was about the elasticity of the cost of a price of
milk. Yes, it was. I totally agree.
And the elasticity of a price of milk is based on a theory, which is what economics is. It's not about what the price of the milk is.
Yeah, the most brilliant...
So you're not listening to me, are you?
Yes, I'm listening.
No, you're not.
I am
I can tell you're not listening. You're just going, yeah. But you don't understand elasticity, do you?
I do understand elasticity, but I'm bright enough to be able to take in your argument in a split second and then move on.
Well, what is elasticity then?
Elasticity is all about the variable factors that come into the production and supply of goods in a free society.
Not necessarily.
It is.
Not when it's referring to the price of milk. The price of milk is dependent. The elasticity of the price of milk is dependent upon how much you can put it up, because of all the variants which are involved, not just
That's exactly what I just said.
No, it's not just in the making of the milk, but basically how much people will pay to have it.
I know, that's exactly what I said. And because of the elasticity problem with the price of milk, lots of dairy farmers going bust at the moment because they're being undercut
they
by
say
an
they're going
oversupply
bust.
of milk to
Well,
supermarkets.
No, but they say they're going bust, but they're not actually going bust. What they're doing is making more cheese.
Okay, so they've got to turn to cheese.
I mean, farmers are always telling us they're going bust, but they never seem to go out of business.
Farmers have been telling us they're going bust for 50 years.
Yeah.
I remember when I was a kid at the King's School Chester, and Cheshire is one of those arable type counties. What do they call them? Shire counties.
Shire county.
Lots and lots of farmers sent their kids to my school. They seem to have a lot of money to send their kids to the school. They paid a lot of fees.
Yeah.
And they always arrived in big cars.
Yeah.
Whenever we went to their place for a party or something like that, they had big spreads, believe me.
Oh, yeah.
No problem at all.
Yeah.
Now, Mrs.
But
Thatcher...
they're always pleading poverty, though.
Yeah, people are always having a go at me saying, why are you a Thatcherite? I'm not a Thatcherite. I just believe that Mrs. Thatcher's simple view on economics was the most sensible I've ever heard, and that was earn £10 a week, spend £9.95, joy.
Yeah.
Earn £10 a week, spend £10 and 5p, misery.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, unfortunately,
that's the economic plan in one.
Well, it actually isn't, because the trouble is, if you live like that, then there's no credit. And then nobody can afford to buy anything, and so the economy stagnates because they can't afford to buy the things that the people who sell you the credit want you to buy.
Yes.
And because without the credit, we would have no economy whatsoever.
Well, look, I understand that.
Well, that's completely different to what you just said.
Where do you think I got the money from to buy the odd property here?
Well, you must have borrowed it.
Well, of course. But it's called a mortgage, isn't it?
But if you borrow money, then that Thatcherite model doesn't work.
No,
does it?
she was talking about the weekly household budget. All right, quite simply, this is it in its plainest form, right?
Yeah, but the weekly household budget for most people is now in terms of owing money is massive, because they buy holidays which they can't afford to pay for. They buy cars which they can't afford to pay for, and they're in debt to the tune of about 25 grand.
No, you're confusing microeconomics with macroeconomics.
No, I'm not.
Yes, you are.
No, I'm not.
Afraid you are.
Same goes for the government. I mean, when was the last government that was actually in credit?
Well, there's never been a government in credit.
Right.
There's never been
her
a
economic argument is actually worthless.
The last government actually was in credit was John Major's government in this country, but it wasn't in credit in terms of government debt. It was in credit in terms of not increasing the debt on an annual basis.
Right. So it's still in debt, though.
Still in debt, yeah. All governments have been in debt since day one.
Yeah.
George Washington had to borrow money to
the guy with the wooden teeth.
The guy with the wooden teeth, which he got from the battlefield of...
you said Waterloo.
That's right, yeah, the battlefield of Waterloo. Yeah, still go with that. Still go with that, yeah.
Okay.
And George Washington had to borrow money from the French to fight the English, okay? So when he got into power, when he was the first president of the United States of America, George Washington, that's why they call Washington, D.C., for obvious reasons.
Is that right? Are you sure?
He inherited...
What about Washington State?
Washington State, that's on the other side of the country.
Yeah, it is. Was that named after him as well?
No, that wasn't named after him. No.
Was that just a coincidence?
It was just a coincidence, yeah. It's 50 states, so there's bound to be a coincidence here and there. And he started life, with the newest country in the world, which is then the United States, which, by the way, in those days didn't own Alaska, didn't own Texas, didn't own some of California, which is owned by Mexico and all that kind of stuff.
It was just the original 13, wasn't it, in those days?
It was indeed the original 13, you're quite right. And he started with a massive debt, and they've had a debt ever since. Right. See?
That's what I mean. So to talk about people living what you might call sensibly and spending less than they earn is a complete fallacy.
Yeah, well, anyway, look.
Nobody does that.
Look, we've talked far too much about economics, and you're going to bore the audience to death because, every time I tell you something that's right, you seem to want to sort of row back and say you're not sure it is.
I just want to make sure that you're not giving out false information and misleading the audience.
I don't give out false information.
Clearly, the people are waiting to be educated by you, but up to a point. If you get it all wrong, then that's not a really good service.
Now, listen,
we got loads of time to do loads of this, but we haven't got time now left because you've been rabbiting on about George Washington.
I haven't. No,
you have. With the two mics. We are the two mics. Got a picture here from Taxi Man who says the upstairs neighbour's favourite shoes, and he's done what can only be described as a pair of bricks made into flip-flops. But I presume that's the sort of trouble that...
neighbour's favourite shoes.
That's if you live somewhere where the person upstairs clunks around in shoes.
I see you mean,
it sometimes sounds like that. People get very worked up about that.
Yeah, they do.
I mean, you've lived in flats, an awful lot.
I have,
I mean, you're always claiming that you're in a penthouse. I suppose you'll say there's nobody above you.
No, there isn't actually, but...
Do you never get any complaints from people below you saying, do you mind not walking around on wooden floors making lots and lots of noise?
No, in fact, funny enough, a couple of weeks ago, or maybe a week ago, we were doing a show, and for some unknown reason, we got on to how hot some houses can be these days, because of the amount of insulation. Well, I can tell you for sure, because I was going to add to that conversation. If I go to my place on the coast in December, right? I know we don't have bitterly cold winters here, but I mean, you can't...
Well, you do in some parts of the country.
All right, well, I'm talking about on the coast.
I mean, up in Edinburgh, where we've just been.
Yeah, exactly.
It gets very cold.
Yeah, well, it gets very cold on the coast. If there's a wind blowing in, across the Solent or something like that, it can get very cold. But when I go in to the place, if I haven't been there for a few days, right, I have to open the sliding window sort of patio doors because it's too hot.
Yeah.
And the reason is that you can say, well, is that a good thing? The reason is that over the last 10 or 12 years, because of the fear of, wasting like heating
valuable
and
resources.
Fuel and resources and all that.
The world's energies.
Yeah. The amount of regulations now for insulation in apartments, in flats, is so rigorous that, frankly, nothing escapes. And it's so warm, even in midwinter, I have to have the windows open.
The problem with that is nothing escapes, nothing comes in either.
Well,
so you're actually living in a sort of air-conditioned bubble.
Yeah, sort of.
But the air never gets refreshed.
You never have to switch the heaters on. I mean, there's no gas in the property. It's all electric run, including the heaters. But I don't even know how to use them, to be honest. Because
You've never had to switch it on ever?
Well, yes, I have had to switch them on occasionally for an hour. Yeah. But what I'm saying is I don't use a timer to switch them on and off during the winter when I'm not there because it's completely unnecessary. Right. So I don't know how the timer works.
But if you live in an old house, right, which is quite big,
absolutely,
and you walk into it and you haven't maybe been away on holiday, or you haven't been there for like a few days, it is very cold.
Oh, I totally agree.
If it doesn't have like central heating.
Well, I mean, most people do have central heating, but even if you have central heating, you'll see in some properties older than the ones I live in.
Yeah.
there's gaps between the window frame and the wall and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's been going on for years. It gets worse as the
first
age
house
of the
I bought
population.
in Wiltshire had an anthracite fired boiler.
Right.
You know.
Yeah.
Do you know that
Yeah,
anthracite
anthracite's
stuff?
like coke.
It is. It's like sort of little pebbles of
little
coal.
cubes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was a terribly hard thing to light, and you couldn't leave it on when you weren't there.
No.
So basically, when you came home from being away, or being off for a few days, you'd have to try and light it.
Yeah.
And it was a terrible, terrible thing.
You know the famous song that we'll soon be hearing, "Going Home for Christmas," Chris Rea.
We're going to be playing it soon.
Well, Christmas is coming.
You keep saying soon. It's still August.
I'm telling you, man.
It's not even September yet.
In the last 4 pubs I've been in this part of the world,
Right.
I've seen the Christmas mural in the corner. Book your Christmas lunch here. Book your Christmas party here.
Yeah. Well,
it's all over the
doesn't mean
place now.
Christmas is coming, though.
Listen, do you know what happens these days? You gauge your calendar like this now. As soon as the football season starts, 1 week later, Christmas preparations
Well, we're going to get
follow.
October half term out of the way first.
Well, you've got to get
the summer school holidays are still on. My kids don't go back to school.
I'm telling you, the gearing up for Christmas is already coming. I mean, for instance, you normally gauge it that football season starts, then you get the first England international, right? Then you get, like you quite rightly say, half term. Then you get even fireworks night, okay?
Yeah.
That's not even come and gone
November
yet.
the 5th.
Oh no, sorry. First of all, it's Halloween, isn't it?
Halloween.
And
End
then
of
fireworks
October.
night.
Yeah.
And then what happened to the end of November? Something else, you know what I mean?
Thanksgiving in America.
Thanksgiving in America, last Thursday in November, quite right. And then you sort of hurtle down the hill to Christmas. It's already started. Anyway.
Well, talk about wishing your life away. You've quite depressed me now.
Why?
I thought there was quite a lot of time to go between now and then.
No time at all.
I've got another week's holiday to squeeze in.
Indeed. Now, what I was going to say to you is that the Chris Rea song, Going Home for Christmas.
Yeah, Driving Home for Christmas.
Yeah. Oh, here
it
is.
No.
Here we go.
I really don't want to hear
Driving
it now.
Home for Christmas. Yeah. Well, yeah, just listen
This
to
is actually one of the ones
I
like, funnily enough.
Yeah, that's right.
I do apologise to anyone listening thinking they've woken up out of a sort of very long sleep.
Okay, right, cut that. Thank you. It's depressing old MG. But anyway, that's the very song. When I saw him interviewed last year, talking about this, he said the reason I wrote it was this. He said I was broke. I mean, absolutely stony broke. And then he wrote Road to Hell, right? Which is written about the M25.
Yeah.
He said, and when they got home, he was so broke they hadn't been able to afford the heating in the house because he comes from Middlesbrough, I think, and he'd been working in London, you know, in recording studios and all that. And
what did he spend all his money on?
Well, he didn't have any money until he wrote "This Is the Road to Hell."
He must make some fortune out of this one, though.
Well, he does, but you see, this is the point in the story. Right. So he'd made this record, and he'd finally got a breakthrough, but he still hadn't been home for 2 or 3 weeks, something like that. And he said he got home, and he opened the door to his house in Middlesbrough, and as they walked in, it was colder in the house than it was outside. Because there was ice on the inside of the windows. It was like an icebox and all that. Yeah. But he picked up the mail from the doormat, and in it was his first royalty cheque for The Road to Hell of about like 25 grand or something.
Brilliant.
You see what I mean?
Right.
And so out of that, he said, I wrote this song because it was such a joyous...
Because I presume he thought he was going home with no presents.
No presents.
No tree.
Yeah, exactly.
No turkey.
Exactly. And all that.
What are you doing for Christmas this year?
Oh, well, I don't know. I haven't even thought about it.
You don't know?
I haven't even thought about it.
Well, you just told me it's rushing towards you.
Well,
you better make some plans.
Well, we'll make plans later. I mean, we don't even know when we're going to be on air over Christmas, do we? So we've got to sort all that out. You know what I mean?
Well, we might not even be here. I mean, you might have died between now and then. Well, I mean, you know, one of us might not have actually survived the autumnal season.
True.
I'll see if I can check for you what day Christmas falls on, right?
Well, Christmas falls on. I can tell you.
Well, go on.
If we're doing the Glasgow garage on the 17th, which is a Saturday, Christmas must be a week later on the Sunday.
Yeah, very true. Yeah. Christmas Eve is a Saturday. Christmas Day is a Sunday.
There you go. Okay.
Well, thank you very much indeed.
So I'll work that one out for you. Now, listen, I want to talk to you about the Red Baron.
Yeah, you've been talking about the Red Baron all day.
Yeah, now this is brilliant. This is brilliant. 100 years ago this week, the Red Baron, who was, of course, Baron von Richthofen, shot down his first victim.
Yeah, you say victim. Somehow it doesn't. I mean, it's probably the right word, but somehow it doesn't sound right. I think his first combatant or something would be right.
His first, what do they call it? His first hit?
His first hit? Yeah, maybe.
His first hit, yeah. It was his
victim
first
just sounds like the wrong word.
Yeah, okay. Well, you know. Anyway, the point is, Manfred von Richthofen, for his, was the greatest, like, sort of ace of the First World War.
Yeah.
And he only got into it by accident because he wanted to be something else. But the point of the story is, this is very...
How'd you get into it by accident?
Well, because he was from a noble family, and he began the war as a cavalry officer, because that's what German nobles did. You know what I mean? But the thing was, he had the nobility of the upper classes.
Because in those days, I suppose it was quite a daring thing just to go, I think I'm going to learn how to fly a plane, because there wasn't that many people who knew how you could fly a plane anyway.
Well, I've got an explanation here. It said his vision of fighting nobly on horseback was not matched by the reality of trench warfare. So when he joined up to fight in the First World War, he thought he'd be galloping across the Somme, not buried in trenches,
up to his waist in water.
Up to waist in water and all that kind of thing.
Being bitten by rats.
Yeah, exactly. So he applied for a transfer, writing, "I have not gone to war in order to collect cheese and eggs, but for another purpose." Because apparently, the soldiers were sent out to the farmhouses on the battlefields to get, cheese and eggs, feed the troops and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, it could have been a lot worse.
It could have been a lot worse,
I thought he was going to complain about something else.
No. So in 1915, he looked for an alternative and joined the flying service.
Right.
At first, he was an observer.
The Sweeney.
Hey?
Like the Sweeney.
Yeah, like the Sweeney.
Flying squad.
Well, yeah, this is the flying service, actually, not squad. Now, to start off with, he was an observer, so he sat in the front of the plane and, took pictures, actually. But by August 1916, he transferred to be a fighter. By January 1917, he had made 16 kills and formed his own squadron. In a month, the British called Bloody April. Yeah. That's not a swear word. That is like Bloody Sunday or whatever, He shot down 20 planes and gained control of a set of flamboyantly coloured planes because he was so successful, which the government gave him, and it became known as Baron von Richthofen's Flying Circus.
Oh, right.
He was so successful, they named his squadron the Flying Circus.
Because if you could shoot 20 planes down in the First World War in a given month, then presumably whoever your adversary was would have to make another 20. They didn't have that many planes, did they?
Well, they
didn't have hundreds of them.
I didn't think they did.
No.
Not like Spitfires.
No.
Anyway, on July the 2nd, he was in a fierce dogfight with an RFC squadron because there was no RAF in those days.
Right.
It was the Royal Flying Corps squadron of the Army. And a British pilot wrote, "Two of them came at us head on, and the first one was Richthofen.
Yeah.
I saw him eyeball to eyeball. I kept a steady stream of lead pouring into the nose of that machine. Richthofen was hit, and his plane crashed, but I heard later he suffered only a head wound." Right. Fearing the propaganda disaster, because he'd become such a hero back in Germany, fearing the propaganda of his death, the high command of the German army tried to ground the Red Baron, but he refused, saying that, he would give up his command and all this kind of stuff.
Well, they tried to ground him in order that he would survive.
Yeah, exactly.
Right,
yeah.
So he wouldn't be in any more danger.
Yeah. Anyway, it was to no avail. Pursued in a dive by two RFC planes in 1918, he was hit by a single bullet. And those guns were chucking out like 60, 70 bullets a minute, apparently.
Right.
After his death, the Flying Circus gained a new commander, Hermann Göring.
Hermann Göring,
Hermann
really?
Göring,
the very same?
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Wow.
And the thing is, his first hit, as I say, was 100 years this week. Now...
but there's some kind of sort of anniversary sort of celebration of a type going on, right?
It's absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
It's Lionel Morris and Tom Rees were the English and Welshmen who were the victims of his first hit, okay? Right. They and their two-seater plane became the first victims of the German fighter race.
So are they not getting together with some relatives of his in order to sort of celebrate it?
Now representatives of all three families, so that's the German family, the English family and the Welsh family, will be meeting to mark the centenary of the event when the Red Baron began his journey to become the world's most celebrated pilot, and the Rees and Morris families, sadly, lost their sons on the same day.
Right.
When they do,
imagine what the fighting conditions must have been in those days as well, because, like you said, they have to get pretty close to each other.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, completely unlike now, where they're firing weapons at each other from miles away.
Hundreds of miles away.
I mean, like he says, he's seeing the whites of his eyes and all that.
Yeah. I mean, it must have been so glamorous, wasn't it, not to be killed, obviously, but I mean, that's the thing. When the families get together, they will drink a toast of reconciliation from a silver goblet, which is a replica of the ones that Richthofen made to commemorate each of his skills. He had a silver goblet for each of his skills. But, I mean, considering he shot over 60 planes down, must be an awful lot of goblets flying around somewhere.
Must have been.
Isn't that amazing?
It is an amazing story. There's never really been a proper film. I mean, I know there have been movies made of it, but there's never been sort of one movie that you could point to and go, that's the film to go and see.
Did you see the Blue Max?
I did see the Blue Max.
The Blue Max was brilliant. Now, the guy in that was, what was the name of the actor in that?
That was not him, though, was it?
No, that wasn't him.
That was somebody else.
That was somebody else. But it's based really on it was based on that sort of era.
Yeah.
And the Blue Max guy is played by a very handsome actor who later went on to play Howard Hughes in a film called You know, the book was written by Harold Robbins.
Was it Harold Robbins?
Harold Robbins wrote a book about Howard Hughes called The Carpetbaggers.
Okay.
The Carpetbaggers.
Yes, I remember that.
And that lead in that, Howard Hughes, was played by a guy with steely blue eyes and white hair. I can't remember his name now. He's a very handsome man.
Was he American? You're not thinking of Stuart Granger or something?
No, I'm
like
not thinking Stuart Granger. No, I think he was like Scandinavian or German or something.
All right.
Anyway, the point of the story is, it was a fantastic film, but in addition to shooting down aeroplanes, the Blue Max hero used to go around Rogerising all his commanders' wives. Uh-huh. And as a punishment for this, what they did was they literally knackered his plane. So they didn't knacker him. Sorry?
They didn't knacker him.
Well, they did, because the plane crashed and he got killed.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So,
what you mean, his sort of underlings?
Oh, yeah.
Messed around with the plane?
Well, no, his commanding officers, whose wives were being sort of, Rogerised by the hero, the Blue Max hero, got fed up with all this behaviour, you know what I mean? It'd become too big. Yeah, that's right, become too big hero and all that. So, they instructed their underlings to, according to the film, saw through like a bar, you know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that'd be a warning to us all.
Yeah, saw through a bar that was holding like the wings together or something like that. And this was in a demonstration for a new aeroplane which was going to finally beat the British, right? So all the hierarchy of the whole German army and government are watching this as he takes off, and then he's,
plummet straight to the ground.
And then he does this vital turn, wing snaps off, bang. That's the end of Blue Max.
That's the end of him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Must be a lot of women in dark glasses at the funeral.
Well, exactly. Yeah. Absolutely,
well, 350 years ago, the Great Fire of London started and went on for some time. And we've heard, I suppose, lots of experts talk about it in the past. Yep. You've got your own theories about how it started.
Certainly have.
And we know how it ended as well. Right now, we're going to talk to Adrian Tinniswood, who's the author of a book called By Permission of Heaven, the story of the Great Fire of London. And Adrian, a very good evening to you.
Good evening to you. Great to be talking to you,
Mike.
Thank
you. Yeah, thanks very much indeed for joining us. I mean, I go to the Museum of London with my kids quite a bit, and I look at all of the various artefacts they've got there, from the buckets that were used by the firemen there, and the firemen's helmets. And I mean, the whole story is just a sort of a magnificent tale of historical significance, but also of kind of human endeavour, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, the fire destroyed London 350 years ago. This coming Friday it started, and it just wiped out the capital city.
Yeah, it wiped out most of the churches, didn't it, Adrian? And I think St Paul's that we see today, the rebuilt St Paul's of Christopher Wren, wouldn't be there now if the fire hadn't actually happened, would it?
That's right. I mean, the old medieval St Paul's went. I mean, everybody thought that couldn't possibly go. It was this huge Gothic cathedral. Yeah. Standing up there at the top of Ludgate Hill, everyone thought, no, there's no chance that can burn, and it did.
It did. It went down, yeah. And most of the churches as well. Adrian, was there, has it ever been decided how it actually happened? I mean, was it, Pudding Lane? Was it the baker? I mean, in those days, of course, there was so much dust flying around in bakers' shops that it's amazing it didn't happen sooner. But my own theory, having studied what I can of this, is that Dutch spies set fire to London because we were at war with the Dutch and they had a navy almost as big as ours.
And that's exactly what people thought at the time, Mike. That's exactly what people thought. Everyone was convinced it was a terrorist attack. We were at war with the Dutch, and 2 weeks before, we'd burned down a Dutch town called Westerschelling.
Right.
And everybody thought this is retaliation.
Right.
It couldn't possibly just be an accident. And, of course, it was an accident.
Oh, was it?
The real reason for it is that on the 1st of September 1666, which was a Saturday, everybody's waiting for the battle to end all battles. There's a huge naval battle about to take place between the English and the Dutch in the Channel. And just as those fleets come together, a gale whipped up.
Right.
And that gale, it wrecked both fleets. There's no battle at all.
Right.
They blew out sails and it toppled masts. And then that gale moved up through Kent, and round about midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning on Sunday the 2nd of September 1666, that gale hit London, and by an awful chance, it hit London just as fire broke out in the baker shop on Pudding Lane. If it hadn't been for that gale, there'd be no Great Fire of London.
So, I mean, in other words, I mean, it was amazing, really, that this hadn't happened before, as Mike said, because there were so many likelihoods of fire breaking out. Most of the structures were wooden.
Exactly.
And everybody lived very, very close together. So, it was
just happen, Mike. It did happen all the time. I mean, houses were burning down every day in London.
Right.
You imagine a world lit only by fire, where you air your clothes by sticking them in front of an open fire. You look for your chamber pot under the bed with a lighted candle. Houses are always burning. It's just that the fire on the 2nd of September just happened when that gale hit.
Just astonishing. And as far as, I mean, there's a reenactment, I believe, being made ready for Friday, I think it is. And it's going to be put on a barge, and somebody is...
When you say a reenactment, Mike...
Well, yeah, when I say a reenactment, don't be alarmed. It's a model reenactment, let's say.
Oh, right,
but I was watching the local TV news the other day, and somebody has very painstakingly put together an incredible kind of scale model of what London looked like at that time.
Yeah.
And I believe they're actually going to light it and make everybody watch it. I think Sunday, I'm being told, it's going to happen. So that will be fascinating as well, to see whether that you can actually get a better idea of exactly which way the fire went and all the rest of it.
Brilliant. Yeah. No, I mean, it hit Pudding Lane, which, as you know, is down by London Bridge.
Yeah.
And the reason people thought it was a terrorist attack there was because of this wind. This wind blew up embers from, threw them up into the air, embers from the fire in Pudding Lane, and they landed in the next street on Fish Street Hill, and they kept being whisked up into the air.
Sure.
And dropping down all over London. So everybody thought, well, this can't be an ordinary fire. There's fire bombers. They must be setting fire to houses all over the place. It can't be an accident.
Now, Adrian, what is the relationship between the fire of London and the Great Plague? Did it, by some act of God, wipe out the Great Plague?
It didn't.
Right. Well, let's hear it.
No, I mean, everybody thinks... I mean, I was taught this at school, and you probably were. Yeah. The thing is, the plague had just about finished. There were plagues all over England. I mean, the plague wasn't just in London in 1665. It broke out all over England. So to say that the fire put a stop to the plague when it was happening in Norwich and Derby and all over, it just doesn't make sense. But what happens is that when you get an outbreak of plague, these things go in cycles. And gradually people build up immunity so that to begin with there's a very high mortality rate, and then gradually the mortality rate lowers, goes down and down. And by the time the fire broke out in September 1666, the plague was just about over.
Yeah. And am I right in thinking, because sometimes when I walk down to our studios here at Talk Radio Towers, I walk down Union Street, which is the administrative headquarters of the London Fire Brigade, or London Fire and Rescue. Am I right in thinking that fire regulations started the week after the fire stopped, and some of them are still in place today?
They started very soon after, Mike. You're quite right. I mean, there's no fire brigades. All they got at the time, they got a couple of huge, what they called fire engines, which were massive cisterns of water on sleds with really crude pumps. And they dragged one of those down to Thames Street and Pudding Lane, down by London Bridge.
Yes.
And they dragged it down to the riverbank to fill it up with water, and it fell in and floated off, and no one ever saw it again.
Nobody ever saw it again.
Well, as I was saying, when I see the size of those little sort of fire buckets that they had water in to try and put the fire out, you can't believe that they were able to put any of it out. No. And I mean, you do wonder whether it just kind of burned itself out, got to the Tower of London because that was a stone structure to the east, and it stopped, and then got to sort of Smithfield to the west, right?
And that was it. Adrian, anyway, listen, we're running out of time, buddy. I wanted to ask you also about a new publication you've got out, The Long Weekend. You're a very successful author. What's that one about?
The Long Weekend. It's subtitled "The Life in the English Country House Between the Wars," and I won't say it's a great book, but I love writing it. It's all about the kind of Downton Abbey in real life, if you like.
Okay, Downton Abbey.
Well, that would fascinate you, because there was a time in one of an earlier shows that we used to do when we had the executive producer of Downton Abbey on.
Oh, absolutely.
Who was going to put Porky in as an extra down below stairs. Yeah. So he thought he had the perfect look for something like that.
Yeah, he did, yeah.
Was like a domestic.
Although I love Downton Abbey, and I really did, I was a huge fan, I was an even bigger fan of Brideshead Revisited because of the house, Castle Howard. Is it from that period as well?
It is, and I tell you what, I watched that Granada series again the other day, the whole lot, and it doesn't date Golly, that's good.
Which one are you talking about? You're talking about
Brideshead.
Brideshead, yeah.
Brideshead,
Oh, absolutely.
The one with Jeremy Irons.
Oh, I love it. I could watch that over and over again.
It's wonderful.
Could never quite work out the relationship between Jeremy Irons and Sebastian Flight.
What do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean you couldn't work it out?
Well, I couldn't quite work out. They're big chums.
It's ambivalent. It's
a bit ambivalent.
Well, I think you're meant to be left wondering, I think.
Yeah, exactly.
Isn't that the point?
Yeah.
But, I mean, you will know better than anyone, Adrian, the long weekend. I mean, there was an awful lot of times during those big, long summers between the two wars. Yeah. There wasn't an awful lot to do apart from mess with each other's heads, was there?
Well, and going to parties.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Well, that's all part of the same thing, isn't it?
They were good, They were great parties.
Yeah, I always feel I was born for that sort of era, but sadly passed me by.
Yeah, as a below-stairs footman.
No.
As a footman.
No. I'd have joined up and become a Spitfire pilot first off. Very good.
Unbelievable. Yeah. We feel as if we had a very long weekend back in last weekend up in Edinburgh, but that's another story altogether.
The lost weekend.
Adrian, the lost weekend. Thank you so much for your time.
Great to talk to you both.
He's the author of By Permission of Heaven, the story of the Great Fire of London. Also coming out very shortly. A new book called The Long Weekend, all about life during the wars in stately homes. Of course you'd want to be part of a stately home, wouldn't you?
Yeah, of course I would.
That's typically snobbish of you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you got access to all the top gals, didn't you? The daughters of the dukes and
the flappers.
Well, they were all flappers. The flappers were the girls who were in the
between
music
the wars
halls.
they were. No, between the wars they were flappers, weren't they?
No, they were the girls in the music halls.
No,
who
they
used to
weren't.
dance
The
on the
flappers
stage
were
and sing Hello Dolly and all that.
Yeah, but the people who dressed that way were called flappers.
Were they really?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not sure about that.
You're going to look up on that.
Okay.
James says this. Please remind Porky ahead of tonight's Porky Vision that the second series of Poldark starts this Sunday.
That's right.
Don't give the plot away.
Okay.
Well, we had Kevin O'Sullivan on the other night saying that basically Poldark's all about him taking his shirt off for most of the series.
Yes.
Little sort of topless mining and topless horse riding and topless everything else.
Yeah, into all that.
Yeah, we'll get into that later on. We are the Two Mics.
Help, not just anybody. Help, I need someone. Help.
That music can only mean one thing. It is, of course, the very popular feature that we do here on the Two Mics, which is Ask a Porky. This is where very, very many of you are able to ask questions which you cannot get the answers to anywhere else.
Indeed.
They could be about your own personal life, or they could be about just questions in general that nobody else knows the answer to. And the Porkmeister here is here to help. Hence the song by the Beatles. Now, we've got, as usual, Mr. Parry, quite a wide-ranging selection of questions.
Good.
Some of which are ones that maybe even you won't be able to answer.
I will, don't worry. It's a broad base, and I'd like to hear from every section of society.
Yes, absolutely right. So, let's kick off with one from Mark, who's on Facebook, right? Okay. And basically, as ever, if I can ask you to be as succinct as possible and as brief as possible, while being as informative as possible.
Indeed.
He says this: thinking about forming a bird-watching team for Tokyo 2020. Any tactics greatly received, very gratefully received, and also if pigeon-brain transplants are available on the NHS, will these be allowed?
Well, the answer is that I used bird watching as an example of I thought that canoeing was, a pretty pointless sort of sport to include in the Olympics because I said it was a hobby. And I used the analogy with bird watching or rambling in the Amazon forest because, of course, the Olympics are in Brazil. But you shouldn't take me seriously on that. That was just really to illustrate. No, shouldn't take me seriously.
What do you mean shouldn't take you seriously?
To illustrate that I thought canoeing doesn't have a place in the Olympics. Bird watching is for bird watchers. They're called twitchers. They're good people. They don't do anybody any harm. I'm all for bird watching, but certainly not in the Olympics.
OK, here's one from Martin. He says, Porky, who from the past or present day would you like to go on a bladderation session with?
Well, I saw a man nominate Oliver Reed as perhaps the greatest ever drinking partner today in some survey that I was reading. Personally, I wouldn't like to go out and drink it with Oliver Reed. I thought he was a show-off. I thought he was a big head. I've seen him. I've seen some clips of him actually recently on a show they put together. Oliver Reed's, most dangerous moments and all that. And to me, he looked like the sort of bloke who often pretended to be drunk when he wasn't. And for that reason, I think he was a bit of a fraud.
OK, that's very harsh on Oliver Reed.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, but I thought he was.
Ill of the dead.
Yeah.
Here's one from Glenn. As a man of the people and someone who fundamentally values hard work, determination, and willpower to overcome all odds, can you tell your millions of listeners why you despise Nigel Farage so much, Porky?
I don't despise Nigel Farage. I don't despise him at all, but I think that this image of, a pint of beer in one hand, a cigarette in the other, I talk openly and frankly about the British people, is not the sort of politician I feel comfortable with. Politicians, to me, do not have to be men of the people. They have to be different because we're electing them as leaders. Theresa May is different to us. She's got the mark of leadership all over her. I thought Tony Blair was different to us. He had the mark of leadership all over him. I do not want our politicians to be men of the people, and that's why I didn't really take to Nigel Farage. charge.
OK. Here's one from Martin. He says, Mike, how would a sophisticated, suave gentleman like yourself romance a woman to give her a perfect romantic evening?
Well, romantic evenings can come into several different categories, but basically what you do is you find a good restaurant with good food, very decent wine, be generous as you possibly can. One thing women like is generosity. They don't like you. Quite often women have had partners in the past who said, should we split the bill and all this kind of stuff. Not in my book at all. You be generous, you be good-humoured, you be polite, you be courteous, you take them to a decent restaurant, and most of all, depending on what your ambitions are for the rest of the night, you make sure they get home safely.
Yes, indeed. Here's one from Pierre, which was, funnily enough, on the subject of John Lennon. What did John Lennon mean when he said, life is what happens when you are busy making other plans? It's always puzzled me.
No, it's a fantastic quote. What he meant is that basically we're all concentrating on things all the time, and we take our eye off the ball on important issues. So, for instance, your marriage can drift away because you're concentrating so much on your job.
Yeah.
You're concentrating so much on having to travel with your job. You're not keeping your eye on things. Things can just go haywire, and all of a sudden, the minute you wake up and say, what happened to my marriage, it's gone. It can happen in all sorts of areas. Sometimes you can support a football team to the extent where it takes over your life and you suddenly realise your home life's gone, maybe even your job's gone. What John Lennon meant was, keep your eye on the ball, because if you don't, things will happen and they'll come up and smack you in the back of the head.
Maybe one for Anthony Weiner, that one.
Yes.
Perhaps you should have taken your advice.
Yes.
Speaking of football, a different Martin says this, can I come to a game with you in your box at Everton FC, please? Any game, I'll be there.
I haven't got a box at Everton FC. I've got a seat in a very nice part of the stadium and a table in a very nice lounge. It's not my box, of course. There's a good 60 other people in it, something like that. But it's a very nice facility. And whilst I enjoyed it enormously, I realise that not everybody can afford to do that sort of thing. The pure and honest football fan who saves up his money and goes every week is the salt of the earth supporter.
OK. Here's one from John, who says, could Porky please tell me how come I am sitting on the tram from Princess Street to the airport, that's in Edinburgh, listening to MG, the Edinburgh expert, on a podcast telling me it only goes to Murrayfield?
Well, I don't know, because, of course, old MG, that's yourself, sitting opposite me in the studio here, knows a lot more about Edinburgh than I do. The trams have evolved over the years. I don't quite know where they went, because you don't see too many trams in Edinburgh, to be honest.
I can tell you what you didn't see, and you didn't see a tram arriving into the terminal at Edinburgh
not.
Airport.
Definitely not.
My contention is that they go somewhere near the airport, but they don't actually go to the airport.
I didn't see any trams go near the airport. I didn't see anybody giving us directions saying, get the tram, it goes straight to the airport. In fact, you see very few trams. We saw more trams driving in from the airport when we got there, disappearing over this horizon, than we ever saw when we were in Edinburgh.
Yeah, exactly. And we saw a load of them at the tram depot, but not anywhere else.
Yeah.
Roberto says this on Facebook. Hello, Porky. I've received a leaflet through my letterbox from one of our neighbours, asking for help in finding their missing pet tortoise. Yeah. Do you think that someone who allows their tortoise to run away and escape should be allowed to keep pets?
Well, I've had this thing before about missing pets and all that kind of stuff. People nail up these appeals all the time on trees for missing cats and all that kind of stuff. If you've got a pet, then you've got to understand the emotional tie to that pet is very, very strong indeed. You shouldn't go around bleating if things happen to the pet. As for a tortoise, well, the problem with tortoises is it is literally the story of the tortoise and the hare. Because you think tortoises hardly move anywhere at any time at all, you take your eye off the ball. When you take your eye off the ball, the tortoise has gone through a hole in the fence, and by the time you've woken up the next morning, 8 hours later, the tortoise is gone. Take care of your tortoise.
Yeah, I would say that. I lost a tortoise when I was a child.
Yeah,
Mark says this, I have a phobia of needles, but need dental work doing. What's the best way to get over it? And please don't tell me to man up.
Do you know the best way to get over it is you don't need to see a needle. In dental treatment these days, because you're basically, lying backwards or something like that.
Yeah, but you're thinking about it,
No, well, don't. Close your eyes and let the dentist get on with it. I mean, the point is, if you don't have a needle in your mouth before dental treatment, mate, you might as well go and, audition for the role in The Marathon Man, because it's going to be very, very painful, your dental treatment, if you don't have your injections.
OK. William says, Porky, I'm off to the Costa Brava next week. Now I want to visit Barcelona football stadium, but the other half isn't having it. How can I get her to change her mind?
Well, if I were you, I wouldn't, because quite frankly, a holiday like that, if you're only going with your partner in life, it's got to be a joint expedition. I mean, the only thing you can do, and I've done this on a lot of occasions in the past, is you say to your partner, if your partner's, a lady, and you're married or you're a couple or something like that, you say, look, darling, I've got a fantastic idea. I'm going to pay for you today to go on a pampering, one of these pampering things that ladies go to. Yeah, spa day, that's right. right, yeah. I'm going to pay for you to go, have your nails done and all that, have a spa and all that kind of stuff. I'm shooting up the road to have a look at Barcelona. I think you're back here at 6 o'clock and I'm taking you out for dinner.
Good idea. White says this, with the pesky wasp season approaching, should I take my portable flamethrower to the pub for those al fresco sessions?
Well, I know what you mean there. You're taking the mickey, but I mean, the point is, wasps can be extremely dangerous. If I were you, I think there's nothing wrong whatsoever with carrying a little tin of wasp repellent around with you on these hot, summery nights. I advise it.
Here's one from Ian. He says, I've got an 8 hours till my flight from Mallorca to Manchester. Do I stay up and get bladderated or sleep and be a good dad?
I see. Flying out on your holiday.
Well, he's flying back, I think.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I can't quite understand why he's waiting 8 hours, but I mean...
Well, because his flight's probably in the middle of the night.
Yeah, so 3 o'clock in the morning or something like that. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, I tell you what, if you're with children... Stay away from adoration. If you've got responsibilities to get your children home after a holiday, last thing you do is go near the old the champagne bar or the booze wagon. Seriously, your responsibility is to your children. Get your children home, get them safely back in their beds, back in Blighty, and then arrange to go and have a few sherbets with your mates the day after.
Fergus says this, would you rather support Liverpool for a season or live with old MG for a year?
I'd rather live with old MG forever than support Liverpool for one day.
I thought you'd go the other way.
No. Forget that, pal. No way in the world.
Do I ever say?
Well, probably not, but I'm telling you, you wouldn't get me supporting Liverpool for 1 minute.
Yeah. OK, here's one from Tim, who says, I've been approached to invest in an internet sports TV station. I'm told it's a surefire money spinner.
Yes.
Should I invest?
Well, the answer is find out who you're investing with, because the crucial decision you make in any business arrangement is, firstly... It's better to go in on your own because only you then can make the decisions and you live or die by your own decisions. When you go with other people, you've got to make sure they're the absolutely right people to go into business with. You've got to be sure of their credentials. I made a terrible mistake and unfortunately I threw my lot in with others who simply didn't know how to run the venture that I joined up to. Simple as that.
Here's one from Pete who says, what to do this Friday night? Pub with my mates for beer and women or stay in alone for the 2 mics?
You can do both. What I would do if I were you is I'd get out and socialise a bit and have a few beers and all that kind of stuff. Remember, all these shows come down on a podcast or make an arrangement to catch up on us if the programme's being rerun on another medium within a few hours of you coming home.
Yeah. Now, this one's a bit more of sort of, I would say, philosophical one from Roberta. Porky, what becomes of the broken-hearted?
Yeah, well, that's a very good point, actually, because what usually becomes of the broken-hearted is they either wilt and fall by the wayside or they get back into business, get back in the saddle, so to speak, and get on with it. The trouble with being broken-hearted is it slows down all your ambitions in life. It can be a terrible thing to have fallen in love and failed, or to have fallen in love and to have been rejected, but I'm afraid it's going to happen to everybody in life, and you just got to put it behind you and get on with it. I know that sounds simple, but honestly, that's the only answer.
Another philosophical one. Hey, Porky, when does a peak become a plateau?
Well, a peak becomes a plateau when you have got to the stage of life where you think, I have arrived. It's a dangerous moment when your peak plateaus out, because the problem is when you think you've got there, that's when the world will come back and smack you in the face. You've heard the old expression about, it's tough getting to the top. It's even tougher staying there. That, believe me, is a truism in life. Never feel that you can rest on your laurels. If you're not learning every day about life and about the job you're in, you're finished.
Lee says this, finally, I suppose, we'll have to wrap it up after this one. I'm addicted to you two. Do I need help?
No, you don't need help. And in fact, if you listen to a lot of what MG and I say and the way we lead our lives and the way we respond to problems and adapt to situations, we, generally speaking, get more of it right than we do wrong. We can be classed as winners, and there are an awful lot of losers in life.
Is that it?
Yes.
OK, so you don't need to seek help at all. Thank you very much for all those Ask a Porky questions. Anyone that we didn't get to, we'll try and put them into the mix for next week. We'll do it at the same time. We are the two mites. Got quite a few tweets here on your Ask Porky answers. One from Bob, who says that Liverpool answer was the best I ever heard on Ask Porky. Yeah. If only MG was that honest on such tribal football matters.
Really? Yeah.
What does he mean?
Well, I think he means that I was quite clear about it. I've just played that song, by the way.
Yeah.
What's that song?
It's Footloose, isn't it?
Yeah. Why is that?
I don't know.
Because we're going to announce the result of the poll on flip-flops.
On flip-flops, yeah.
Which you wear on your feet,
The poll has now closed.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, we'll announce that in a minute.
All right.
In a minute. So you've got a few more responses, have you?
A few more, yeah.
Excellent.
Here's one from Davies. He says, Porky, why are you not speaking out about your friend Jazza Vine almost getting knocked out by a lady with red hair?
Well, we just have.
Well, we just have talked about it.
Yeah.
Why would he say that?
I don't
know.
Yeah.
And here's one from Derek. Another great quote similar from the HBO show The Wire. Life is what happens while you wait for moments that never come. That's a slight variation, isn't it?
Yeah, quite like that.
Quite like that.
Yep.
Ethan says, what time do I skip onto the podcast to actually listen to you two? Alan sounds as thick as Porky's fridge door.
Who?
I don't know who he means by that.
Alan? No idea.
No idea.
And that is my expression, by the way, thicker than the fridge door.
It
so
is,
please don't start nicking those Parryisms.
Yeah, I know.
Or Porkyisms, actually.
Porkyisms, exactly right. Now, coming up tomorrow, of course, we've got Porky Vision, so I don't know whether you've had the opportunity to watch anything yet because of our busy schedule.
Yes,
but obviously,
I have,
you'll be spending a great deal of time between now and then actually doing it.
Oh, you bet. Don't
now, should
worry.
we not do this result while they're playing the Footloose music?
Well, I think we should do it now.
Otherwise, it's kind of disproportionately out of order, isn't it?
And the music's going on and on and on.
It is. Yeah. Right, the final result is the question. Mike Parry wants to ban flip-flops when worn in non-flip-flop situations. What do you think? 56% to 44% banned a lot of them.
Thank you.
So you've won another one.
Well, that's a very decisive victory as well, isn't it?
It is quite decisive,
Absolutely decisive, yeah.
Quite a few hundred people voting in that as well.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Only 44% say leave my flip-flops alone.
That's right,
So you've obviously made some great influence on the listeners there.
Yeah, is this record getting on your nerves now? Because it's getting on mine.
It is a bit, yeah.
Thanks a lot. We'll look up that one. Thank you. That's it, yeah.
Yeah, you're not very tolerant of music going on and on and on, are you?
It sounded like a rattle in the background eventually, but I'm very happy to praise our technical team.
Yes, I think they've done a great job.
Putting it in their first place. They've done a great job. Yeah.
Now, what about this? Porky, get yourself over to... I think they're saying get yourself over to TalkSport where Liam Gallagher, Noel Gallagher's in. You can have a nice chat about Liam.
Oh, was he? Was he talking to our colleagues?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, of course.
Tomo says, surely salt is bad for someone with only 1/3 of his heart working.
Well, it is, but you can have everything in moderation. You've got to remember bladeration in moderation, saltification in moderation, and exercise application in moderation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely right.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah. Now then, here we go. Getting ready to... I'm not sure what this is. This is from William, who's a regular correspondent. Had shower with water pressure very low, so I could still hear the two mics.
Right.
I am one of the great unwashed, Porky. Well, you're not, William. That's not fair. I don't call people the great unwashed.
Well, there's not much point in having a shower if you've got the pressure turned down.
Well, exactly, yeah.
Why would you bother?
Don't know.
I actually washed the car today. The old jalopy, which I've not washed for a very, very long time.
Did it fall to pieces?
It didn't fall to pieces. It looks great, actually.
Surprises me.
The reason I did get it washed was because when I left it outside over the weekend, unfortunately got sort of, shall we say, scattered by sort of bird droppings.
Hate all that.
So I thought, I've got to get rid of these.
Hate all that.
And it was great. Took it to one of these places where they did it for 10 quid.
Yeah.
And I didn't get the inside done because I've had to move a load of stuff around, just the outside. It looks terrific.
Do you know that, I'm sorry, but bird deposit can be actually very dangerous?
Oh, yeah.
Well,
they strip the paint.
But yeah, they do. Yeah. They do. And I remember on one occasion... just leaving it too long, and when I came to sort of chip it off, so to speak, you know what I mean, by which time it needed chipping off, I marked the car, and I had to have the car repaired. It is the best thing you can do is get rid of it as quick as possible with a hot kettle, because a hot kettle will not damage the the coachwork of your car, but that stuff does.
Well, the coachwork, as you put it, on my car is probably not quite as important as the coachwork on your car, because
probably not.
My car is now like 15 years old.
Yes,
and so it's got quite a lot of marks on it, which I didn't make, by the way. But you're amazed how much better it looks just by having it just kind of washed and buffed up a little bit.
I tell you what, any car these days looks better when it's washed, and do you know why?
Yeah.
Because when the wheels are silver, as they should be, it makes the car look brand new.
Yeah.
And when the wheels are black through both the, that's on the front wheels these days because of disc brakes, it throws out this fine spray of like black fluid, actually. So about a week after you get it washed, they turn black anyway. Yeah. But the wheels at the back just get covered in like
just dirt,
stuff thrown up off the road. Soot. That's right. But I've got a metallic bodywork, right? And it looks great all the time. But it looks 2 years old when the wheels are dirty.
Do you remember that Aston Martin we saw last night that was completely covered in filth?
Amazing. Parked out in the Porky Towers Road.
Yeah.
And we got close to it.
Talk Sport Tower, talk Radio Towers, surely.
Oh, sorry, did I say Porky Towers? So that's where I live. That's right. I don't live here.
That's where you are.
I don't live here.
Well, it just seems like it.
That's right. Yeah. But in TalkSport Talk Radio Towers,
there
was an Aston Martin parked outside, and we both commented on it. But It was filthy. The body of it was filthy. Now, to me, that means that the person who owns that car is wealthy.
Yeah.
Because if you're scraping, around to support yourself running an Aston Martin, one thing you do is you keep it immaculately clean all the time.
Yeah.
Because it's a fact of life that, if it becomes a more prized possession, if you've had to struggle like mad, and not struggle, but I mean work very hard and get the money together to buy it, it's your pride
but
and joy.
Maybe he's got an ulterior motive for keeping it dirty because you don't know. I mean, it was a dark colour. I think it was sort of dark gunmetal grey or something.
Yeah,
quite a dark colour. So maybe if it's that dirty, people don't notice it and they won't try and nick it.
You can't nick an Aston Martin these days, I'm told. Yeah, I'm just told you can't because the computers are almost like sensitive to touch and all that kind of stuff. Right. You know what I mean? There will be one of these days, by the way. The windscreen on a car. Obviously, you look through it.
Yeah.
Well, for years, politicians like Ronald Reagan were able to read their speeches on words they could see on their side of the screen.
Didn't Aston Martin do this? Didn't they project the speedometer up onto the actual windscreen?
And you can still do all that. Yeah. It's an optional extra you can take. But what I'm saying is, Ronald Reagan would stand there. You'd think there was just two blank screens on either side of him.
Well, you couldn't actually see the screens. All you could see was the sticks.
Yes, that's right. That's absolutely right. And you thought it was some sort of security measure or something like that. In fact, the words were flying in front of his eyes. He was reading it. Now, well,
that's quite a skill in itself to be able to read them without showing that you're reading them.
Yeah. Now, when we went to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
It didn't happen on the way back, but on the way there, going out of Gatwick Airport, at one stage you just had to stare at a camera.
Really? Oh, that's right. Yeah,
remember
for the retina thing.
Exactly, and that's what's going to happen. That's going to be incorporated in a chip in your windscreen.
Yeah. Do you know, I did that once, and I had to take a trip up to Glasgow.
Yeah.
And I've been out quite late the night before.
Yeah.
And I stood in front of that retina camera to go through security. And I stood there, and eventually this sign came up saying, "Please open your eyes." Because my eyes were so kind of slit-like.
Oh, I see.
From having had quite a late
night. From your adoration.
That I had to kind of pin them open for it to work.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. No, I didn't know that. Yeah, that's very interesting indeed.
Yeah.
Right, now then, something I want to talk to you about.
Yeah.
Do you ever go to 3D films?
Well,
Have you ever seen one?
Do you know, I've taken the kids to 3D films. In fact, a few years ago, we bought a 3D TV. Just because it seemed like that was the thing that everyone was buying. But I never actually watched anything on a television in 3D.
No.
Because they had 3D movies, but you'd put it on and it would be sort of, fish swimming around under the sea. It was quite interesting up to a point.
Sure.
And you put special glasses on, which you bought with the television.
Yeah.
But actually, after you'd seen a couple of them, you were like, well, that's fine, I've seen all that.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, sometimes the kids and I go to the movies, and we went a couple of times to the 3D version, which is more expensive.
Yeah.
But actually not as good.
No.
The best thing about 3D movies in the cinema is actually the adverts. The adverts are great.
Really?
But the movies themselves are usually not very good.
I've never seen one because I don't wish to put on a pair of glasses that somebody else has just worn.
Well, they give you new ones.
Are you sure?
Yeah, they're brand new.
No, I think they're recycled.
And then you can keep them, right, and bring them back the next time. So you don't have to, if you remember to bring them each time, you don't have to buy them every single time.
Not sure about that. Anyway, the reason we're talking about this is because
They've banned them in China, haven't they?
My reports from China say that the government are going to ban them because people are literally being physically sick inside. And the film that apparently has been manufactured there to very high 3D standard is the new Bourne film.
It's
called Jason Bourne.
That's right. Apparently, the fight scenes are so realistic and have been filmed so cleverly in 3D that they've actually been too realistic, and people have been going to see them suffering headaches and vomiting.
Yeah, I know.
As a result of watching it.
I know. It's amazing, isn't it?
One viewer on the Sina Weibo micro-blogging site says, I felt so dizzy and couldn't bear any more at the halfway point. I ran to the toilet and threw up for a couple of minutes. Another one said, I felt really sick during the fight scenes when I watched it in 3D.
Not good.
No.
I read a review today of somebody who, maybe your kids will be into this, I don't know. You put on a face mask and you go into a virtual reality experience.
Yeah.
But
this is Oculus Rift, isn't it?
It's what?
Is this the Oculus Rift thing?
What's that?
Well, it's the new sort of virtual reality game that's coming out in September.
Oh, I don't know. What this was, and it might be the same thing, is this person was terrified because you put on this mask, like a pair of old-style skiing goggles, okay?
That's right.
And then, and it was a woman who was reviewing it.
Yeah.
She said, I was petrified because I was standing on the edge of the roof of the Chrysler building in New York, and if I'd take one step forward, I literally feared I was going to, fall hundreds of feet to my death.
Maybe we should let you try them out.
Not sure about that.
I don't think you'd like it, though.
And
we've been talking to a tech guy for a while, haven't we, over in various other shows that we've done, and they say the biggest problem they've got is that they're so realistic that they are actually frightening, and they do make people feel unwell. So they're actually working on how to make that better.
On another one, she was in the middle of the making of what was the first film with the dinosaurs on the island?
Oh, what, Jurassic Park?
Jurassic Park, and literally threw herself to the floor as she thought she was about to be eaten by a dinosaur.
Right.
I mean, they're incredibly realistic, these things. And by the way...
I don't think I'd want to see that.
No, that can't do your head any good, can it? That can't... You'd have nightmares about that.
Well, how can you stop... Could you stop seeing it? I mean, if you go to bed and, you're lying there in your various state of either nakedness or non-nakedness...
absolutely.
What if you have a sort of flashback to it?
I mean, I wouldn't subject myself to
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
I hate heights as well, so I'm telling you, that experience of nearly stepping off the roof of the Chrysler building, that would disturb me for weeks.
But what if you could step off it and then just kind of fly around?
Well, you can't. You can't. If you step off it, you step off it.
Yeah, but you're in a virtual reality game and you can do anything you want.
Yeah, but you can't because she hadn't programmed this. Somebody programmed it for her.
Oh, okay.
And if you stepped off it, whoosh, you were going down.
Yeah.
Not for me.
No.
Not for me.
I think it's all new stuff coming out in September. So, we may have to get somebody on to talk about it.
And
see if we can get you to try it out, even if it's not something quite as bad as that.
J'agree.
And do a little kind of running commentary. What do you think? We are the two mics. We've got loads coming up, fully booked in this show. We've got lots and lots of your tweets as well. Here's one from Patrick who says, I think the show needs a daily update of Parry's commute. First the rucksackers, now the flip-flop. Yes. Hashtag sidewalk rage.
Yeah, well, it's not sidewalk rage. It's social graces. That's what I'm against. I'm against people with bad manners. And for a guy to start, flipping his flops in my face when I'm behind him is not good enough.
Yes, all right, fair enough. Well, we'll get back to that in a minute because we've got a very important man to talk to now.
Excellent.
Ian Silvera, senior politics reporter at the International Business Times.
Brilliant.
Because Jeremy Corbyn, of course, who's always being kind of, not being accused of, but who's always, his supporters were always saying he's always being picked on by the likes of us and what they call the mainstream media for messing things up. But he has messed something else up. And we're going to talk to Ian now about it. It's his digital manifesto.
Okay.
Ian, a very good afternoon, a very good evening to you, I should say. How are you?
Yeah, good evening. I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much for joining us. Now, the problem with Jeremy Corbyn is that whenever something goes wrong, he and his followers and his people that support him seem to think that he's getting unfairly picked on. But he has been picked on quite substantially by almost everybody who saw this digital manifesto being unfurled, hasn't he?
Yeah, I wouldn't say picked on. I would say it's rigorous, scraping through the details of this digital manifesto. Not least, and I'm sure we come on to this in a bit, the author, Richard Barbrook, who's proving to be a controversial figure.
Right, well, Richard Barbrook, this is the guy who has been put in charge of his kind of digital affairs, right? This is a guy who believes that he's got something to offer, not just Jeremy Corbyn, but the entire world in democratising the internet.
Indeed, and some of the choice things that is coming out is that he's tweeted stuff. I obviously not going to repeat it, but he's told Blairites they run a rubbish Remain campaign and should shut up, basically, but in more stronger language than that, among other things.
Right.
And, he sort of describes himself as a sort of digital communist and all this, and there's various things that he's come out over Twitter saying, and he's said that Labour's anti-Semitism issues is actually the demonisation of the Palestinian cause.
Right.
So that's just some of the choice things that he's come out with.
Yeah, this is all a bit deep and gruesome. This in. I mean, I want to know what this expression "we are going to democratise the internet" means. What that means is that the internet is too free a speech platform for most people who don't want free speech, isn't it?
Well, yeah, it's sort of vacuous in a sense, isn't it? Because at the moment, I suppose the internet is full of free speech. I mean, some of the stuff that he's proposed, for instance, is a digital passport.
Yeah.
Now, that the warning there is that it could become a central government database, and therefore it's just going to attract hackers, and they're going to try and steal people's personal information. Another thing that he's proposed is a broadband rollout across the whole of the UK, which is a bit of a vote winner, to be honest, particularly with small and medium-sized enterprises.
Yes.
But it's going to cost an awful lot of money. He's costed it, and fair play, he has costed it. at £25 billion. So
just the odd 24 billion. Yeah.
But hasn't he also
been
been
submarine with that?
Yeah, hasn't he also been criticised as well, though, Ian, because he did not vote against what the government wanted to do some months ago, when they were basically collecting loads of data on individuals privately anyway. So while on the one hand he wants to change everything, when he had the opportunity to vote against something that would have changed everything, he didn't do it.
Yeah, no, that's dead on in the sense that he has not gone against the Snoopers Charter, which is this massive controversial piece of legislation from the government, which, human rights organisations and the like have come out against. So as you say, on the one hand, he says he wants to democratise the internet, but actually when the proof of the pudding is put forward in front of Mr Corbyn, it doesn't seem to be there with his actions. So it's all well and good launching a manifesto, promise these things, but as you sort of mentioned there, he hasn't sort of proven it in his own voting record.
No, and I mean, I know that, again, Corbyn's supporters, I've already got one here tweeting me from Glasgow saying, Viva Corbyn, are you guys still not believers? Put your head out the window. Can't you feel the wind of change? Well, actually, no.
Frankly, I can't.
I can't feel the wind of change. When you are, I mean, it's a bit like when you're in Facebook and you are surrounded by people who think exactly like you do. The people who support Corbyn think that everyone thinks like them, and everyone else is, of course, the enemy. But there's not as many of them as there are of people who are not, quite as enthusiastic. But even Chris Bryant, who's an MP for the Labour Party, says that Corbyn's missed the point because he failed to mention the need to curb online abuse, not least in the current situation where several MPs, particularly women MPs, have been threatened by death threats.
No, yeah, and I thought that was an open goal. I know a lot of my other colleagues who are journalists as well have sort of voiced that as well, of what Mr Bryant has said there, because of course we've had an anti-Semitism inquiry, we've had these various incidents of harassment online, and really with a digital manifesto you would have thought that would have been part of Corbyn's policies. But in his defence, I know we've sort of been fairly negative, but he does have a strong social media presence, and his team, Jeremy for Labour, they're now called, obviously previously called Momentum, have been able to harness that to get people out to these big rallies, get people engaged with Corbynista politics, not UK-wide politics. And I suppose what some Labour people would say is, well, why didn't they do that during the referendum campaign for Remain? But it does seem Corbyn's able to mobilise people via the internet.
Yeah, well, that may be the case.
That is the problem, Ian. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to talk to us.
I see there's a mention there of unjustified surveillance by CCTV.
Yeah.
Have you already mentioned that?
No, we haven't.
I didn't think you had, no. And obviously that's got to be an open door for all his opponents to come back and say, what, because you were caught sitting on the floor on the train by CCTV?
You might say that he was the victim of that, won't you?
Yeah, exactly.
But people have been moaning about CCTV surveillance for years.
But there's no problem with CCTV.
There isn't a problem.
If you're not doing anything wrong, what's the problem with CCTV?
Well, exactly. And also they've been able to sort a few things out. There was a time when the CCTV wasn't very good, but it's getting better now. And if you are looking for a reason to try and track somebody down who's committed a crime, then you'd
I don't want people urinating in doorways in this country.
Don't you?
So CCTV is a good thing.
Well, you want to prosecute people for doing that as well?
Well, I think we have to. What have I told you about flip-flops? What have I told you? Social...
Very difficult if you want to do that.
Social courtesies.
Social courtesies, and sort of etiquette and that kind of thing. Yeah, but you wouldn't want to do that as well if you were wearing flip-flops, would you? Urinating in the doorways, your feet would get
people
wet.
Probably will. I'm getting a few texts and emails from people who are defending the flip-flop brigade. Alex says, I carried my flip-flops in my backpack while cycling to work this morning. Will I go to hell? Well, no, you're going to hell, but I mean, at least you
just don't want to be running into Mike Parry.
At least you're only going to wear them when you get there. Another one here, Porky, I literally live in flip-flops. Do you? His name is Ross, but he's got a picture of himself with a horse. So I don't know how you can wear flip-flops on the back of a horse.
No, I don't know how you can.
Impossible.
Here's one from Ian. He says, I live in flip-flops, but then I live in tropical Cairns in Australia, not London. Horses
that's all right.
for courses, mate.
That's all right.
Porky should have a word with Jason Cundy, says Jane. He's an avid flip-flop wearer.
Yeah.
That's actually true. We've got a little poll going on as well. So if you go to Twitter and pick up the talk, where I'll just retweet it actually on 2 mics as well. We're asking you if you agree with Mr. Parry. He wants to ban flip-flops in any non-flip-flop wearing scenario. What do you think?
In any non-flip-flop wearing scenario, yes, of course I'm with you.
Anything that would normally be a place where you would not wear them.
Well,
i.e. not on the beach.
Look, if you're on St. Lucia, where I once went, and I remember wearing flip-flops all the time. I was paddling around the hotel and the swimming pool and the beach and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. Yeah. But you don't wear them in the middle of Waterloo Station in London when people are trying to move around. Don't you understand that when you're at work in a big commuter situation, you don't do things like stop and stand at the top of an escalator. Yeah. You don't do things like wear flip-flops to slow yourself down as you're moving around a station. Yeah. You don't do things like not move when I want to move because you're getting your bag off the rack and all this kind of stuff.
You basically want everyone to keep out of your way.
No, you have to have a discipline, and it's called work discipline.
Is that right?
Not leisure discipline. Okay. Leisure discipline is totally different.
Well, here we go. So far on the flip-flop debate, banned a lot of them, gets 56%. Leave my flip-flops alone, only 44%.
Well, there you go.
It's early days, though. Early days.
I think you can say, once again, the Portmeister, voice of the common man.
Yeah, voice of the common man. Man of the people, the man who has so many houses he doesn't remember how many he's got, and he won't tell us either.
Let me tell you something. I had a brand new... I
think it was a Nokia, wasn't it?
Was it a Nokia? Yeah, I think it was. Is that the Finnish phone? Yeah, that was the Finnish phone.
Not sure. I mean, I know that for a long time we only had Nokias.
Yeah. Well, here, let me tell you. I got a new car, bigger car, because I was the news editor. And what was the Ford? It was a Mondeo.
It was a Ford Sierra or a Mondeo.
No, it was a Mondeo, I think.
Yeah.
No,
it would have been a Sierra.
Sierra.
Because when I came back in '92, they gave me a 2-litre Sierra, which I thought was the worst car I'd ever seen. Right. Yeah. But all the photographers were going,
how'd you get a 2-litre?
Yeah, I said, I don't know. I said, just gave it to me.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I got a better one than that. I got like a 3-litre or something. But what came with it was a phone. And you wouldn't believe, I had to go to this place where they fit phones, and they needed the car for the day.
Right.
Now, what they did is they took out the whole of the dashboard. Right. I'm not joking. Right. And then all these wires went in behind the dashboard, and this huge cradle, which you have to put that brick-like phone in. Yeah. And so you were driving along with a monstrosity, literally, between the passenger and the driver, and it formed a barrier. Yeah. But it was so huge. Yeah. Now, you could take the car out, you could take the phone out of the cradle, but then you needed a big suitcase to carry it around it.
I remember those,
like a briefcase.
Well, they were really expensive, about £1,000.
And the amazing thing was, the area was still on, and to work them, it was amazing. But that was the first phone.
But also the sort of the coverage was so awful that you couldn't get a signal anywhere most of the places you went.
No, you couldn't.
In any event. Now, William says Android is a different operating system than, for instance, Apple, which uses the iOS system. And he then says the Android system is actually less secure than iOS, which is true. Yeah. Because you'll find with your Dell, for example, and as you found with some of your other computers that you've had, your laptops, they get infected with viruses a lot more easily than Apple's do. Yes. Because Apple have got a much better sort of security system.
Right, okay.
That's one of the reasons I prefer them.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. The other thing about phones in those days was that they were incredibly expensive as well. So although the office suddenly said, oh, yeah, we've got your phone. Oh, thanks very much indeed. Yeah. They would then come to you at the end of every month and say, this bill is £1,600 for the phone. And I said, I've only used it 4 times. Right. And the other thing was, there was a lovely lady around in those days who was a showbiz reporter. Called Leslie Ann Jones.
I remember Leslie Ann Jones.
And Leslie is still around today. And
she's still a friend of mine on Facebook, funnily enough.
Right, and she's still a very glamorous woman. Yeah. And
writes books, I think, now.
She writes books and terrific company, and she's got fantastic contacts in the showbiz world.
Yes.
And pop stars and all that kind of stuff, And twice, I remember going out with her, and I think her main she was always been a freelance, but I think her main sort of customer in those days was the Daily Mail. Yeah. And twice, the Daily Mail gave her a mobile phone about that size, big, huge brick like that. Yeah. And twice she left it in a pub and lost it. And they used to cost about $3,000 in
Well, the photographers were always trying to run them over. Yeah. Because whenever there'd be like a new batch of phones in, the only people that would get them were the ones that actually needed a new phone. Yes. So if you had an old phone which worked perfectly well, you wouldn't get one. No, so I'd be out with sometimes some of the snappers, and they'd be out like dropping them off buildings. Yeah, that's right. And trying to run over them. That's right. But they couldn't destroy them.
And throwing them in rivers and all that kind of stuff.
Well, they couldn't throw them in a river, but they could claim that it had been damaged in some way. Because if you threw in a river, then the management would say, well, hang on, tell us exactly what happened.
No, because it had that huge aerial thing on the top, you could dangle it in a river. That's what I'm saying. And then you sort of got caught in a rainstorm.
Leslie Ann Jones, by coincidence, was the woman who gave me the interview when I was at the Express with Jermaine Jackson. Which Jermaine Jackson said, I think my brother might be a paedophile.
Oh, really?
And I then woke up the following morning, having splashed it all over the front page of the Daily Express, to get a phone call from another columnist at the Express who was not party to the story, to say, oh, hello, Mike, are you listening to Capital Radio? And I said, no, I've just got out of the shower.
Yes.
And she said, well, Jermaine Jackson's just been giving an interview to Capital Radio and said he never spoke to the Daily Express and he's going to sue you for £38 million.
Yeah. Oh, that's pretty good. That's all right, yeah.
But of course he never did.
Loose change. Of course
because the story was true. But I had to come into the office and it was a bit like, walking down the sort of gauntlet of hate.
Yes.
Because people that would formerly have been friends of yours were all sort of turning away. You go to a conference, everyone was kind of shifting up to the other end of the room.
It's the nature of our business that if you get anything good, then the envy factor is massive around the office and everyone to knock you down.
And the editor sat there, and I was quite green at that time in terms of being an executive.
Yes.
And the editor sat there and said, so what have you got to say about this then, Michael?
Yes.
Because he always used to say Michael when he was being serious.
He used to call me Michael as well, yeah.
And I said, and I did a sort of Jason Robards from All the President's Men.
Stick by my story.
And I just said, tell them we stand by the story.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
And nobody would talk to me.
No, exactly, yeah. Well, funny enough, when you say about that, I'm Sunni and all that, there was a former England international footballer, and I'd been tweeting out about him and his shortcomings.
Oh, yeah.
Because...
Well, recently?
No, a few years ago.
Right.
A few years ago. Tweeting out about his shortcomings and stuff. So we end up at Goodison Park. And
when you say shortcomings, you mean personally or?
Personally.
I see.
He'd been misbehaving.
Right.
And I was.
There's no need to repeat it, of course.
No, not repeat it. But I was because of the industry in which we work and because, we mix with a lot of professional footballers.
Right.
I knew that what I had been talking about was absolutely true because this man was a hypocrite.
Yes.
He'd been tweeting out on things about, criticising other people for what they'd done.
Yes.
And I simply just got fed up with the hypocrisy of this
guy. The
guy.
holier-than-thou
because I knew so much about him. And I just simply tweeted out saying, listen, before you get on your high horse, do you remember so-and-so? Right. Bang.
Right.
And it literally was, how dare you, and that kind of stuff. And then it started a spat in which he started accusing me of being all sorts of things, a thief, a liar.
Yeah.
And, it basically
Twitter does become ridiculous.
Oh yeah. Basically, he never answered the allegation that I'd put out, which was absolutely true because he couldn't.
Right.
So he started then slaughtering me, for all sorts of things. You're a drunk.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that you found face down in a gutter every night. All this kind of stuff.
Which is not entirely correct.
Well, not entirely incorrect, but I mean, not every night.
Not every night, no.
And this kind of stuff. Anyway, about probably 6 months later, I was in the press box at Goodison Park, because I'd been doing an interview for another organisation as an Everton fan before a big game. And I was aware of a looming presence behind me. It was 2 hours before the game started. There was nobody else in that part of the ground.
Right.
And the sun suddenly went out, if you see what I mean. And I was aware of something.
Literally blocked out the sun.
This guy who was a big footballer, I mean, I'm talking 6'4" or something like that. He when I'd finished, and the interview I was doing was on Skype, so I was talking into a blank laptop screen. You see what I mean? Yeah. And when it finished, he then started laying into me. Why did you say that? I said, because it's true. Yeah. No, it wasn't true. Why did you do that? Why are you trying to destroy me? Why you do that? Why you do that?
Yeah.
And all this kind of stuff. And he said, come back into the press room if you've got the courage. And I said, okay. So I went back to the press room. So he said, can you quiet down, everybody, please? Quiet down, everybody. Yeah. Right, I'm telling you now, this scumbag, and this Mike Parry, he made about me. I'm telling you all now. He made a complete fool. He said, my lawyers are on the case. Yeah. I'm suing him. Right. I'm going to ruin him, and I'm going to wreck him. Don't any of you ever go down the route he's gone, or you'll get the same treatment.
Right. And nothing happened?
Nothing ever happened.
Well, that was always the thing, wasn't it?
Nothing ever happened.
If you received a letter from a lawyer threatening to sue, basically you knew that it was never going to actually come to anything.
And I let it go for about 6 months, and then one night, 6 months later, and bladderated on a Saturday night, I just realised, I said, just so you all know, the communication from X's lawyers to me about, and I repeated the allegation, have so far not emerged. Right. And, of course, he went mad again. Oh, I saw your face down in the gutter again tonight, and all this kind of stuff.
I know, it's mad,
that's what they always do.
Absolutely mad. Now, how about this from Scott? He says, so Porky now thinks we shouldn't watch movies or read on a train. Only drinking Pinot seems to be allowed. And then he goes, LOL.
Well, if you're in first class, you can drink Pinot because you've got a table in front of you and all that kind of stuff. Now, wouldn't advise it if you're holding it because the shaking of the train often means you spill it all over yourself.
Right. And Gazman has sent us this, which you might remember was the advert for the phone you're talking about.
Oh, right, yeah.
Price and technology breakthrough. Lightweight, handheld cellular phone. Carry it along with you to make or take calls wherever you go. Yeah. Keep in touch when you're out of your office, home or car.
How much?
£1,499.
£1,499? That is incredible. That is a piece of history.
I know.
$1,499 for a mobile phone.
Yeah. And you can get accessories for the CT300,
yeah.
an AC adapter,
yeah.
extra rechargeable nickel-cadmium battery pack, hands-free data interface.
Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic.
Incredible, really, when you think about it.
I went to a party, right, in about, now let me think of the year, it must have been like 1987 or something like that, right? And it was back in the Midlands, where I'd been a reporter on the Birmingham Mail in the Register office.
Yeah.
Now, a lad there who was the editor of the Register Indicator, a fine weekly newspaper.
Indicator, that's an interesting name.
It is, yeah. Register Indicator.
I always liked the ones like the Gleaner.
Oh, yeah,
which is always quite good.
Oh, I did. I loved them.
My favourite was Cleveland, the Cleveland Plain Dealer.
Cleveland Plain Dealer.
Yeah.
That was obviously in America.
Yeah, in Cleveland.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I do remember all those. Yeah. But anyway, the Register Indicator. So. And this guy, he had, like all of us, he had two choices: go further in the newspaper world or go somewhere else. And he took a job in PR in a Birmingham. Yeah, exactly. in a Birmingham company. But then, to give him his due, he never moved out of Redditch. He married a Redditch girl and all that. So he actually set up his own PR company in Redditch, to deal with companies in Warwickshire and Worcestershire. Very good.
Yeah.
So I go to see him. There's a party at his house. And he calls me aside, because I'm then the news editor of the Daily Express. He said, "Oh, Mike," he said, "look, I want to show you something." So I said, "What is it?" So he took me into his study, and he had one of those phones, the brick is all around, but it wasn't black, it was white.
Yeah.
And he said, "I've gone yuppie." That was the expression those days.
Yes.
I've gone yuppie. I said, "That's brilliant." He said, "Yeah." He said, "This is it." I said, "It's fantastic," And I don't think we had one at the Daily Express yet. You know what I mean? He said, "Look," he said, "if you want to, you can make a call on it." It's like that. This is how special it was.
Yeah.
He said, "But please don't make it more than like 2 minutes if you want to ring your mum or something." I said, "Why?" He said, "It's about £10 a second or so." I mean, it was massive.
Ridiculous.
Were massive, and that's the way it was in those days. But do you know the first time I had a phone in my house, which was cordless?
Yes.
A fellow reporter from the Daily Express. It was when I came back from America the first time, and I met you.
Yeah.
Came back, bought a flat in a place called Sutton, and it was a penthouse actually, but it was only like on a 3-storey building.
Okay.
So it was at the top and had a little balcony and all that. And BT came to reroute the phones and all that kind of stuff, and they showed me this model. I said, "This hasn't got a cord." Then.
Yeah.
They said,
I think I remember the one. It was kind of beige, wasn't it, with an aerial that came out the top.
Right, that's right. Yeah. But this one actually fitted on the wall, and you flipped the aerial up, so to speak.
Right.
And I said, "That's fantastic." I said, "So can I have to stand next to the base thing?"
Yeah.
He said, No, you don't. You use it anywhere in your house.
Yeah.
I said, "So I can take this off there.
Right.
This is the kitchen, and I can walk into my lounge or my bedroom." He said, "Yeah, it'll work." I mean, this is miracle technology.
Revolutionary
miracle
stuff.
technology.
Yeah.
And I said, "Fantastic." Anyway, so I had a housewarming party. An old colleague of yours and mine, Colin Bell, comes round. Colin, sadly, is no longer with us.
No.
Because he succumbed to the Fleet Street
disease. Yes, he did.
I'm afraid. But he was a decent lad, God rest his soul. But he was so fascinated by this. I'm not joking. He pulled out his little black note, contacts book, and he rang about like 30 people that afternoon. That's all he kept doing, wandering around with the glasses. I remember said, and he was Scotsman. He said, "Hello, Johnny. It's Colin here." and before they said anything, he says, "I'm ringing you." Sorry, that's Irish. He says, "I'm ringing you on a phone that has no wires connected to it. It's a miracle." And that's the way it was in those days.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah. Incredible stuff. Now, we've got lots more to do, including talking about Barry Gibb's 70th, which is coming up next. We've also got to talk about what's been going on, I suppose, with the old the strike threat from the junior doctors.
What time's
the quiz is coming up at 8:30.
Oh, okay.
Which is only about 20 minutes away.
Why is it early then?
Well, it's earlier than normal because we've got Peter Stringfellow coming in the last hour of the show.
Brilliant. Good.
He's probably on his way, hot-footing it even as we speak. Well, from his he knows a lot more about the Bee Gees than we do.
He does.
He's a radio host down in New Zealand, but he is being billed here as one of the biggest Bee Gees fans in the world.
And one of the experts on the group. Yeah.
Tim, a very good evening to you.
Hello, and good morning from New Zealand.
Yeah,
Hi, Tim. Thanks for joining us.
Now, we've been seeing a couple of sort of tsunami warnings and things there, but I'm hopeful that doesn't look like it's going to come to anything. But by all means, if you need to evacuate the studio at any time, don't stand on ceremony, just get the hell out.
That's right.
No, I will carry on for Barry.
No, absolutely right.
I mean, it was a fairly substantial quake, but it was quite deep.
Yeah.
So there are warnings. It sounds like those are more in caution than fear.
That's good.
Now, how is it that you are such an expert on the Bee Gees, and when did you sort of start your love affair with them?
Well, I can remember as a kid, so I'm 35, so I was about 8 years old when they had a concert called One for All, and it was a whole tour, and they made a video of that. And that was on TV a lot when I was a kid, and I remember the first time watching it, and just that. I always loved music as a kid, but I just remember that visual image of the two bearded guys either side of the slight guy in the middle who used to hold his hand to his ear when he sang. And so that was Robin in the middle, and Morris and Barry on either side. But I remember that kind of visceral thing as a kid of going, I can't believe how catchy these songs are. It was just kind of the magic of the melody. So that's when it began. And then when it kind of got serious was I bought the very best of the Bee Gees on CD and at some point in the 90s and just became obsessed, and so had to get another album and then had to get another album, and then it was always the fun of going to record stores and looking for vinyl to try and find all those rare releases, and then fast forward and getting to meet them and working in radio and interviewing Barry half a dozen times over the years, and it's been such a thrill. Yeah,
absolutely fantastic. Do we when we look at this ourselves? I mean, I'm a huge fan as well, Tim, of the Bee Gees, and always have been, probably since Saturday Night Fever, the film, which really brought them prominence. But loads of songs, going way back to Massachusetts and all that kind of stuff. But of the three brothers, and the fourth, of course, sadly, who died young, was Barry the creative genius within that group, or did they all contribute to these fantastic records with these terrific melodies like the one we've just heard, How Deep Is Your Love?
Yeah, they did all contribute. Barry was 3 years older than the twins, so Barry had started his songwriting in Australia before the twins had. And this is one of the great things about discovering the Bee Gees. Yeah, I mean, the Saturday Night Fever era is the most famous, but they were, even at a period when they talk about being in the doldrums in the early 70s, when they'd had their first wave of hits and then they were having a couple of lean years, they were enormous in Southeast Asia at the time. They were selling out in, say, Canada and Australia and New Zealand. So they were always big somewhere if you go way back in the early days. But really early days in Australia, Barry Gibb was the most in-demand songwriter as a teenager in Australia. And then, as they got a little bit older, the twins started contributing to that songwriting process as well. And I mean, it's always going to be sensitive as to who was contributing the most. I mean, my feeling is that often it would start with an idea from Barry. They'd like to start with song titles. They'd come up with a title first. And Barry and Robin would tend to work on the lyrics together and butt heads quite a bit, which you need in good songwriting often. And then Morris was the glue and helped a lot with melody and throwing out chords that Barry and Robin would go, that sounds good, let's go in that direction.
Because as we were saying at the start, listening to that song, there is a sort of unique sound to what the Bee Gees do. Unique. But some of the other songs that they've written, could have been written for anyone. You know, but then if the Bee Gees perform them, suddenly it becomes a Bee Gees song again. I mean, it's quite a gift, that. Yeah. I mean, it's an astounding gift. It's so fascinating to me also how, the use of the word disco got so misunderstood by people, because disco essentially was R&B, and it was R&B that you could dance to, and it's as much an era as it is a musical style. But what happened, because the Bee Gees were so associated with that era, then people retrospectively forgot about a lot of those great early records. And then even when the Bee Gees, you talk about all the songs they wrote for other artists. Yeah. For example, it's not just songs, but they wrote the entire Guilty album for Barbra Streisand. Yes. And a great album. And some critics, even the ones who really liked it, because most critics did like it, would say, this was Barbara's disco album. There's nothing disco about it. But it just shows. I mean, the Bee Gees could dip in and out of so many different genres. There was nothing disco about Woman in Love. That was one of those beautiful ballads that's ever been written. Well, it could be the slow song at the end of the night, though, couldn't it? Well, maybe it could be. But, I mean, talking about that disco era, Tim, and you know a lot more about it than I do, were they competing with, was it Nile Rodgers, who was the other great... Chic. Chic, yeah, the other great disco I don't know, really. King. It was a slightly different time, wasn't it? Was it? I thought he was in the same sort of genre. But what I wanted to really ask you, Tim, there was... At the same time, yeah. Yeah, why does an artist who has so much creative genius in his head, why does he give brilliant records like that away to somebody else? Because, if it was me and I had a great idea with my broadcasting colleague Mike Graham and we had a great sketch to do on radio or in video, I think I'd want to do it myself.
Yeah, well, I think the way Barry definitely looks at it is that you write in a slightly different way when you start thinking about writing for another artist. So in 1960s Australia, Barry was often being asked to give songs to other artists, and that would make him write in a slightly different way.
Okay.
Then the brothers, they wrote a massive UK hit in the late 60s for a duo called the Marbles called Only One Woman, and it's the most extraordinary song, and they might not have written that had they written it for themselves.
Right.
Same with Grease for Frankie Valli.
Yes.
They probably
Grease
wouldn't
is
have
the
written
word.
that unless it was written. Yeah, Grease is the word. But they wouldn't have written that unless it was written to order. To Love Somebody they wrote with Otis Redding in mind, and he died before he could record it. But from the start they were always writing with other artists.
Sorry, what was that one they wrote for Otis Redding?
To Love Somebody.
Oh, I didn't realise that. I had no idea.
You can hear him singing.
Of course
you
can.
You can
of
hear
course
him
you
singing
can,
it.
yeah.
And are they considered? I mean, I know you're in New Zealand, and I wouldn't want to in any way suggest that that's the same as being in Australia, because that would be insulting. But I mean, is there a sense in Australia that they're a kind of Australian band? Because obviously, they spent so much time there. Robert Stigwood kind of reinvented them there. But obviously in Britain, we like to claim them as our own. But are they kind of thought of in Australia as Australian?
Yeah, they are. They are sort of. And I think they're really. They had an album called "Children of the World," but not to be cheesy, but I think that's sort of how they feel, and that they're very proud to have been born in Isle of Man. They have a strong connection to Manchester.
Yes.
They really do. That when Barry is in Australia, then that feels like home to him, and the reason they moved to Miami was because it reminded them of Australia, and Miami is where Barry has lived now for the largest chunk of his life. So I think they felt at home in lots of different places. Robin, for example, even though he lived in Miami as well, he felt more at home in the English countryside.
Oh, right.
And that was where he connected with the most.
Okay, fine. So what now for Barry Gibb? Because clearly, they were such a phenomenon as three brothers. Four brothers, obviously. Was it Andy, the one who died early, who was very sad, But, I mean, can he be creative now without having the other two brothers around him bouncing all those ideas and suggesting these riffs and chords and all that? Can he still have a future?
Yeah, he can. Well, this has been billed as just his second solo album. Yeah. He put one out in 1984. But the truth is, he did a sequel with Barbra Streisand to the Guilty album, which did really well about 10 years ago, called Guilty Pleasures, and he wrote that with his two sons. And so this project, his new album In the Now, is also co-written with his two sons. Yeah. And so Stephen and Ashley, and so I think he's trying a little bit to get that same sort of creative process that he had with Robin and Morris, which is that he does like to bounce ideas off people, and sure. Sometimes with songwriters, if you have the radio on quietly and it's a song playing that you don't know, and you actually mishear the melody, you can get an idea for a melody that's totally different from the one that you're hearing on the radio. But I think it's a sort of similar thing for him, that just having those other people there, even if he's doing the bulk of it, and I'm not saying that's the case with Robin and Morris, because often Robin would dominate a song, but but the two sons do spark him off in certain ways, which is great.
Yeah. And also seeing him on stage, I don't know if you saw the Glastonbury appearance by Coldplay. I mean, appearing on stage with Coldplay at that massive event was something which will reintroduce him again to another sort of generation. Right? Sure.
Yeah, and Barry, like a lot of us, is a combination of. He knows he's an amazing songwriter, but he's at the same time he's also very humble. And he said when Chris Martin rang him up and said, I'd like you to come on stage at Glastonbury, Barry said, really? Will people still care? And Chris was like, of course they will. Yeah. And then Barry actually gave Chris Martin an out. He said, look, you give me a call back in a month if you still want me to do it, but I'm going to allow you to change your mind. And sure enough, Chris Martin called him back in a month and said, Barry, you're Barry Gibb, for goodness sake, we want you. Yeah. So he has that lovely humility, which also goes with deep down knowing that he's probably knowing he's a bit of a genius.
He's absolutely right.
Indeed.
Tim, listen, thanks very much indeed for talking to us. Look out for whatever is going on down there. Obviously, we'll hopefully it all goes well. Maybe he's got an Android phone, Barry Gibb.
Maybe he has.
Since he's humble.
Maybe he has.
And not extrovert. And, of course, what was the other one? Honest.
honest,
all the same things as you.
And does not seek attention.
Yeah, exactly. Whole bunch of great songs that were written. 70 years of age, hard to believe. Crocodile Shoes is a theme song to Crocodile Shoes, not Spender.
Yeah, but he played Spender in Crocodile Shoes, didn't he? Well, I think so.
I mean, you're the expert.
No,
you're
hang
the
on.
guy.
Spender was a different series, yeah.
That delightful music can only signal one thing. It is the return of Porky Vision, of course, because this is the hottest TV review, the one that you won't want to miss. If you've never heard it before,
absolutely.
It is one of the most amazing TV reviews you will ever witness.
It is, yeah.
And so, we're a bit short of time today, so let's get on with it.
So this great programme,
Straight to it.
is the best I've seen since Peaky Blinders.
Is Honeysuckle Thingy in it?
No. Forget all that. No, this is called One of Us, right?
One of Us.
Yeah, it's absolutely brilliant, honestly. Okay. Now, it started a bit slow. It's based in Edinburgh. How about that?
See, what a coincidence.
Well, yeah, exactly, where we've been last weekend.
Did you recognise any of the locations?
Yeah, I did a bit, a few of the locations, And what happens is, I mean, it's an amazing programme, and you think, what is it all about for the first 20 minutes or so?
Right.
Well, this young professional couple in Edinburgh are making their way up the old, business ladder, and they're planning to get married. And then a junkie comes along, right? A guy, part of the filth. We saw a few people like that in Edinburgh. There are a few, although, generally speaking, a brilliant city.
Yes.
And he just breaks into their house and he kills them. I mean, he's...
Well, that's not much of a start to the show.
Well, actually, he's drug crazed. You know what I mean?
Hang on, but these are the two stars of the show.
No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're just young professionals.
Okay.
And he slits the throat of one of them because you later on you see the graphic.
Is it quite graphic?
Body on the morgue, on the slab in the morgue and all that kind of stuff. Now, naturally, needless to say, two young professionals grown up in Edinburgh, but both who come, believe it or not, from way up.
Yeah.
I mean, way up in Scotland. Okay.
Yeah. What you mean out in the Hebrides or somewhere?
No. Highlands and Islands, but on the Highlands, right? But the sort of place where, as you learn later in this first episode, when you call an ambulance, it takes 3/4 of an hour. You see what I mean? One of them sort of places, right?
Somewhere very rural.
Yeah, rural, and a lonely track to the house, and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. Now, what is absolutely amazing is that this guy, the killer, he somehow acquires something from their property, which gives him the parents' addresses.
Okay.
And the parents live actually quite close to each other, hundreds of miles away in Scotland.
So do you get the sense that this guy knew who he was killing?
Well, we don't know, you see. This is what's brilliant about it. Yeah. There's so many unanswered questions, which are going to get answered as the series goes on. Now, the second episode was last night, and because I've had so many requests in the past not to reveal what happened because people don't watch it for 48 hours, I'm just going to concentrate on the first episode.
Okay, all right.
So what happens is, this junkie guy, right, he then goes and does a street robbery. A bloke gets out of his car, a 4x4, he just pulls a knife and says, give me your car keys, give me your car keys. And because he's got crazy eyes, the guy just has car keys.
He's Scottish, this guy.
Yeah, and he says, and your wallet, give me your wallet, give me your wallet. Right. And so he got the wallet with the credit cards in, he got the car keys, and then he heads off, and he's got the address of the parents of one of the people he's killed.
Right.
We don't know why he's going there.
But he's taking the car now.
He's taking the car.
Yeah.
Now, this is 2 days after the killings. The parents have been notified, so we switched to the domestic scene in the house 300 miles away, up in the wilds of Scotland.
Where they're grieving.
Yeah. And both sets of parents have got together, they're grieving in the kitchen, and guess what happens? As they're grieving...
The junkie turns up.
Well, not only does he turn up, but because he's maddened with drugs and all that, as he's making the final approach to the farm where the families live, he misjudges the road, he comes off the road, and the first thing they know is this 4x4 is tumbling and rolling down from the road.
Really?
And it smashes to pieces on their patio outside their front door.
So is he dead as well, then?
Well, this is another twist. So anyway, this is where I know the ambulance takes 3/4 of an hour.
Right.
So anyway, they get the guy out. They don't know he's the killer who's killed their children, right?
They think he's just some passerby.
They think he's some passerby, and they get him out. But then, in another amazing twist, the brother of the girl who's been killed is, trying to, sort of dab his wounds and all that kind of stuff, and finds, clutched in his hand, a piece of paper with the family's address.
Right.
i.e. where he is now, and thinks, how did he get here?
Yeah. And why is he here?
Yeah. Now, amazingly, what happens next is they go back in the house and the police have released a picture of the killer. And it's the bloke who's now lying on their patio.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So the brother then decides to exact instant justice and goes out and starts punching him in the face.
Right. So he's still alive at this point.
He's still alive, but I mean, he's unconscious.
Not in a good way.
No, he's not in a good way. So anyway, then the family can't say, "What are you doing? What are you doing?" He says, "He's the killer. Look, seen the picture of her. My God, he is." So what they do is they lock him up in a dog kennel because being a rural farm and all that, they've got kennels for dogs and all that kind of stuff. And then they go and call the police.
Yeah.
And an ambulance. They'd already called an ambulance because they didn't know he was the killer. So then the son, who tried to beat him to death, goes and rings back the ambulance, but he's on his own. And what the viewer sees, but the rest of the family doesn't, is he says, "No, don't bother with the ambulance. Sorry, it was a false alarm.
Yeah.
Our friend has just had a mild knock on the head. He hasn't got concussion."
Okay.
So he's told the ambulance not to come.
What about the police, though? Because they're coming now.
Well, he goes back to the family group and says, "Yeah, the ambulance is on the way, and I've called the police."
Yeah.
In fact, he hasn't called the police
he hasn't
at
called
all.
the police. Wow.
Now then, so the man is put in the kennel.
Yeah.
A storm is raging, which the son says must be the reason why the police haven't arrived.
Yeah.
And then the lines go down, the telephone lines. It's all very Agatha Christie at this point, right?
Okay.
But then what happens is, overnight, the man in the dog kennel is killed. He doesn't just die, he is killed.
Right.
He's bludgeoned to death. And there's 6 or 7 members of the family, the 2 families, in the farmhouse.
Like, who's done it?
Somebody's killed him. So then guess what? Then both fathers get together and say, if we now call the police, one of our family has killed that man.
Yeah.
So one of our family is going to go to jail for life for murdering him.
Yeah.
Let's not call the police.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So they don't call the police. So they've got a stiff, like a body, in the dog kennel.
Yeah. Or a murder victim, as some people would call him.
Yes, but a murder victim who's also the murderer of their children.
Yes.
Who they are now not going to hand in to the police because somebody has killed this man on their premises, and that has to be a member of their family.
They're going to have to do something about the car then, aren't they?
Well, that's unsolved. That's unsolved. The car is still upside down in the
sounds very intriguing.
In the garden. It's absolutely intriguing, right? Now, I have seen the second episode, but I don't really want to give too much away. So I'll move to another programme, okay?
And is it with people in it that people would recognise?
Yes.
Any ideas?
Well-known actors.
Okay.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Character actors.
Okay.
Those sort of people, you know. Yeah, famous.
But nobody sort of like stands out as a star or anything.
Well,
you don't. I mean, you don't have to give me a name if you're not prepared to do so. Because obviously, why are you making noises like that?
No, I'm
away from the microphone.
I'm just researching my notes here. Because I like to do these things thoroughly.
Right.
Okay.
We haven't got a hell of a lot of time.
In fact, you'll find. Let me see here. One of us.
Yeah.
Well, it has unexpected consequences, all I can tell you.
Okay.
I can't tell you the name of the actors because that would be ruining it, okay?
Well, you've got a little time to give us something else.
Now, the world's nuttiest vicar is a guy called Billy in Coronation Street. Okay? He's a gay vicar, so, he's a member of the community, he's got a boyfriend, that's fine, he's got a normal relationship and all that kind of stuff, okay? But he's fallen for another man.
All right.
But he's got bigger problems than that, Billy. And Billy must be the world's unluckiest vicar. His brother turns up, who is a cokehead, demanding money off him, for drugs and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So he's giving his brother drugs, so he's helping him actually become a junkie.
Enabling him, Yeah,
a supplier. At the same time, one of his parishioners comes to him, a young girl, to confess that she's murdered a boyfriend and buried him under the house. Right, okay.
They're always doing that in Coronation Street.
Yeah, they're always doing that. It's not the first time they've done it. You're absolutely right. I thought that as well. I thought that's a repeat of
they've done that before.
From 3 or 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So Billy's now in a dilemma. Does he shop his parishioner to the police?
Yeah.
But the parishioner is also a very good friend of his as well, you know. He's also got his eye on another boyfriend. He's been unfaithful to his boyfriend.
Right.
So Billy is the biggest sinner in the world.
Yeah.
Billy is enabling his brother to be a junkhead without stopping him. He's giving him money to buy drugs. He knows that they've got a self-confessed killer within his parish, but he's not shopping her to the police.
No.
He's going along with a plot by another guy who's trying to cover for the killer by telling the police that his dead father was the murderer, who can't answer for himself because he's dead.
Yeah.
And he's also, what's the 10 Commandments? Thou shalt not covet another man's wife and all that kind of stuff. We'll bring that into modern terms.
Yeah.
Billy is coveting another man's boyfriend.
Yes.
Do you see what I mean?
Or somebody other than his own.
Yeah, exactly. So Billy is the biggest sinner in the world.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know how long Billy can last because, I tell you what, the wrath of God's going to hit this boy.
You think?
He's just not doing it right.
You see that as a good Christian.
He's got to man up. He's either got to go to the cops and say she's the killer, or he's got to go to the cops and say my brother's a junkie, he's been taking drugs, or he's got to go to the cops and say, look, I am a sinner, go to the bishop and just simply chuck in his dog collar, in my view.
Well, okay. Or he could just carry on and pretend that he's a man of the people.
But he's doing everything wrong. He's the worst vicar in the world.
No, okay, all right. Well, that was Porky Vision. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah.
We are the two mics. Now, I've got a great idea here that I've spotted in one of the journals that I've been perusing, funnily enough. Oh, yes. And do you know how when you talk about going to the cinema, you don't like the idea of sort of buying a cheap seat and you buy what you could describe as the VIP seat?
Yeah, I do,
right?
I buy like what you might call a club seat.
Yeah, a club seat. Yeah, so you're in sort of club class in the cinema, which to me is one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard. Yeah. Apparently, a lot of cinemas are now just ripping out the cheap seats, right? Yeah. And saying that we don't actually need those anymore.
Right,
We're not going to charge, £7 a time. We're going to now put in basically sofas. We're going to put in more luxurious seating, really, for which you will pay somewhere upwards of about £10.
Yeah,
to sit there or lie there and watch a film.
Easy.
My worry would be in a darkened room like a cinema, because I have trouble in cinemas. If the film is not completely and utterly compelling, I fall asleep.
Do you?
And if I was on a sofa, I'm almost certain I'd fall asleep.
No, I wouldn't fall asleep, but
you've famously never seen the end of any movie, have you?
Well, yes, I have. I mean, you make that accusation against me. But, I mean, I tell you what I quite like these days is that you can go to cinemas now and you get a club seat and it's actually got on your armrest a location for your glass of wine. Yeah. You can drink all the way through a film.
Are you sure it's not a holder for a massive cup of Coke or something?
No, definitely not. It's a placemat for a glass of wine.
Some will offer fine dining with waiter service. Yeah. Others will offer licensed bars.
Well, you see, this is getting better. Now, I
don't think it is.
Seems to me that... have you ever been to one of these boxing nights at a gentleman's club?
Once I went to one in a hotel, which was done up as a boxing night, yeah.
Exactly, and you sit at the table, you have dinner and all that, and then you watch the guys. Now, I found
wasn't for me, to be honest.
I found it quite horrifying that, for the titillation and delicatessen of people who were in, dinner suits, eating and drinking. Right. Two blokes were bashing the hell out of each other in a ring just to keep you amused.
Yeah, and half the time the people who are in there actually eating and drinking, they're not even paying attention.
Not paying any attention at all.
Some poor guy getting his head lassoed around.
Yeah, absolutely right. But having said that, I think to improve the quality of facilities in cinemas is great, because if it's a compelling film, like for instance, most Bond films are compelling.
Well,
except the last one.
I mean, but also they're all quite long now.
Yeah, they are.
They really are. Yeah. And if you were, shall we say, having experienced fine dining and a few glasses of wine, you might struggle to stay awake.
Is Jason Bourne out on release now?
It is, yeah.
Right, I'm going to see that.
Oh, yeah?
This weekend.
Okay.
And I want to see the Beatles film. Now the Beatles film...
That's out soon as well, isn't it?
That's called 8 Days a Week, the Ron Howard one. Now, if I can find a cinema that's got a really comfortable area, I'm going to have some dinner, a glass of wine, watch that film. That would be, to me... That would be Valhalla.
Okay. Yeah. Well, according to a piece that I've seen, AMC, which is the Chinese-owned firm that bought Odeon Cinemas earlier this year for $921 million, right, are getting into
nearly
this.
$1 billion.
Now, this sounds like the sort of thing you would come out with. Guest experience strategies.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I'll have a guest experience strategy. What does that involve?
I just want to take my kids to the movies, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be charged £10.
Yeah.
I want to be charged, about £5, actually, but instead they charge about £7. I mean, when I take my two kids to the movies, I never get away for less than £30.
Well, no, because you buy...
by the time you've bought them some pick and mix.
Exactly, you buy them a box of... Do you know, I always order far too much pick and mix. I always end up leaving half it. I've got... My eyes are bigger than my belly when I'm standing in front of the pick and mix.
Pick and mix is easy to do
that, yeah. And I have, a few licorice all sorts. Yeah. You know those long red things, which are like
very
greasy.
Chewy,
chewy,
very chewy.
I like the.
Do you like the fried eggs?
No, I like the bananas. The spongy bananas.
Coke bottles.
Coke bottles. I'll have a few of those.
What about you? Don't like chocolate? See, I do. I only ever get the big Brazil nuts.
Yeah,
and also the peanuts and raisins. I love. I can eat chocolate peanuts and raisins literally.
I totally agree.
Until I become one.
We're talking the same language here. Yeah. Wine gums. Got to have a few wine gums.
You can't mix chocolate with that.
Well, you can, because I put them in separate containers, you see, and I go from one to the other. Because you can have too much chocolate and then feel like your mouth's gungy.
But also, chocolate's a bit of a stimulant, keeps me awake.
Yeah, well, it could be.
I mean, when I used to drive home to Wiltshire after a long night at the old coalface working in London, I used to have a load of chocolate peanuts and raisins because it kept me awake.
Yeah, well, that's probably why you shaped like you are now. If you did that for a few years.
The reason I'm shaped like I am now is because of the amount of time I've been spending with you.
No, it's not. It's nothing to do with me.
Absolutely is.
Anyway, with me. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Oh, well, hang on. Excuse me.
Yeah.
I thought you were out on the town tonight in the West End.
Well, I'm not in the West End. No, I'm going to another part of London, actually.
And where is that?
Why would I tell you exactly where it is?
I think it's the West End.
No, it's not the West End.
Oh, really?
It's not the West
Well,
End.
you told me the location earlier, which I'm not going to say publicly because you don't want me to, but that is the West End.
Well, what would you consider to be the West End of London? Kensington is not the West End.
Kensington is very much the West End.
Kensington is not the West End.
At West.
No. The West End begins, I would suggest to you, at Hyde Park Corner.
Right.
Now, I'm from London, okay, so don't forget that.
Yes.
You're from the north. You have no idea where London is.
What would you describe Kensington as, then?
Kensington is Kensington. You know, if you went to Kensington Palace, right?
It's not the East End, is it?
It's not the East End either.
Do you know why, by the way? You might know the answer.
Do you know where the East End starts?
The East End starts at... Let me think this one through. It starts on the other side of Tower Bridge.
Not quite. It starts at Aldgate, I would say.
Aldgate, yeah, okay, yeah. Now, you know why the East End of cities has always been the poor end?
Well, my father had a theory about this.
And the West End is the rich end. Go on.
My father's theory was that the wind prevailing was always blowing from the west, and so the rubbish always was blowing to the East End of the city. That's
absolutely true. In towns like Birmingham and Nottingham,
Glasgow,
Manchester and Glasgow, industrial towns, the factories...
I mean, when you live in Glasgow, and we'll be going there in December, right? If you live in the West End of Glasgow, it's still considered to be rather pajink.
Yes, that's right.
Rather posh.
That's right.
Whereas you live in the East End, it's where Celtic's football ground
because the winds were always...
prevailing from the west.
Westerly winds.
Yeah.
A westerly wind doesn't mean it's blowing to the west, it means it's blowing from the west.
That's right.
Okay?
Correct.
And they blew from the west, and that meant that all the filthy factory smoke and all that kind of stuff, right,
litter.
was blown away.
Detritus.
Yeah, I mean, most of the factories were in the East End anyway, because that's where the working people were. But the rich people in the West didn't want the blinking smoke blowing over to them. So that's a position like that.
Exactly right.
But anyway, sorry. So
it's not the West. To me, the West End begins at Hyde Park Corner, right?
Okay, that's fine.
And that leads on to Piccadilly.
Now, what time are we expected at this do tonight?
Well, I'm expected after I finish this show.
I said what time are we expected at the do tonight?
We? What do you mean you? Well, you're not coming. I'm going on my own. You haven't been invited. I was invited to go to a party.
Hang on.
And
we don't go to things on our own.
No, we are not joined at the
hip.
We
don't go to things on our own.
Well, you always go to things on your own.
You know, we have built a reputation as the two mics.
That's right.
So where are you going on your own?
I'm going on my own because I can't take you there because you were not part of the process of invitation.
What?
You were not invited. The invitation did not say, please bring Mike Parry with you. In fact, it more likely would have said, please do not bring Mike Parry with you.
Well, you shouldn't have accepted it in that
Why
case.
not?
Because of loyalty and the
How many
bond.
times have you been to football, private boxes in football matches without taking me?
That's different. I support a team, Everton.
How's
you
it
don't.
different?
So
plenty of times you've gone to things on your own.
What are you going to do tonight when everybody else says, where's the other Mike? Or how's Porky? What are you going to say?
I'll say he's fine. He had to go to bed early.
This is despicable.
You won't be able to get home from there.
It's despicable.
You don't live in London, right?
I don't care.
There are reasons
I get a car to take me home.
There are reasons why you can't be taken to a place like this.
This is outrageous.
It's far too sophisticated for you. They wouldn't let you in dressed like that for a start.
Well, you didn't tell me you were going out till I got here tonight. Otherwise, I'd put a suit on like you.
Obviously, I had to keep it quiet because I didn't want you getting worked up. But now you're getting worked up.
Well, you know,
you haven't even got a jacket on.
Well, I haven't got a jacket on because I didn't realise that there was a formal do to go to afterwards.
Well, I'm terribly sorry. I'll tell you all about it tomorrow. To be honest, it probably won't be that great.
Very kind of you.
But some very important people there who I don't want you to insult. Basically,
I wouldn't insult them.
You probably would.
I think you know what? You're afraid of me outshining you at a do like that.
Yeah, that's right.
Obvious.
Yeah,
you
that's
are.
exactly right.
That's right.
Yeah.
You don't want to be walking around that room in my shadow, do you?
Well, there's no way I would ever be in your shadow.
Yeah.
Absolutely no chance of that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you're so upset about it.
Well, I'm sorry, but I mean, this is
I'm sure there will be any
number of a watershed, this, mate.
I'm sure there will be any number of things coming up in the next few months where you go on your own. Like you do whenever it suits you.
What do you expect to be consuming at this place tonight, then? Drink, food, all this kind of stuff?
I don't think food, because it started around about 6:30 tonight.
Oh, well, there you go, then, you see. So you're just going on the dregs of the...
I'm going, well, because I wasn't able to go there at 6:30 because I was on the air here at 7 o'clock. So I couldn't really go to, I haven't got a time machine.
So you're not really going to a do at all. By the time you get there, they'll all be bladderated.
Well,
Half
some
the
of them,
people will have
some
left.
of them will be. Some of them will have left.
Yeah.
But the ones that I want to see will still be there.
Do you know what you are? You're the sort of person that when somebody gets married, they just invite you to the evening do.
Yeah,
right?
I don't mind that.
Yeah?
I don't mind
just
that.
The evening
you see,
do.
the difference between you and I is that whenever that's happened to you, you've done nothing but moan and groan about it. Whereas when I've been invited to an evening do just for the drinks, and in fact, one of the people who's invited me to this, he invited me to the evening do of his wedding as well, a long time ago. And actually, I was more than happy with that because I don't like to go to weddings for the entire day.
No.
I don't want to turn up at the church at sort of 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
I feel people like me to be at their weddings just to raise the profile.
Well, apparently they don't, do they?
Stuff. No, I think
they don't. I mean, unless you're not talking about your sister's wedding where it was just done for tax purposes. We're talking about people who actually have a proper wedding and a proper celebration.
I think
they don't invite you because they think if they have you there too long, there might be an issue with the amount of grog taken in.
No, I don't think so.
And you'll then sort of burst into song or something.
All right. Well, I really hope you enjoy your do tonight. You know,
I'm only going. I mean, I'm not feeling particularly well. I'm going to properly pop in for about an hour. And I'll jump in a cab and come home.
So you're just hobnobbing on some free drink, basically?
No, I'm seeing some people I haven't seen for a long time.
Hobnobbing on free drink?
No, you see,
are you going to put your hand in your pocket tonight? Probably not.
I don't expect to, no. But I will if necessary.
So it's free drink?
Well, I don't know whether it is. It's not the reason I'm going.
I'm glad I'm not coming with you.
I'm glad you're not coming with me as well.
I might be embarrassed.
Because I can see you're already in the kind of mood to be giving people a hard time.
No.
So you're giving me a hard time. As soon as you got there, you would start giving them a hard time.
I could easily be embarrassed.
And then I would be, by association, tainted by your lack of good manners.
Anyway, it doesn't bother me whatsoever.
I can see that.
Last show of the week tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yes.
It's the Porky quiz.
Porky quiz on Edinburgh.
On Edinburgh, yeah.
So I'll have to inform, before I leave here tonight, I'll have to inform the independent quizmasters to put a quiz together on Edinburgh.
You better had, yeah. How do you expect to get home tonight, then?
I would imagine in a cab.
A cab?
Yeah.
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
What, is that so outrageous to you?
Well, no, it just means that you're going to be staying beyond the time that public transport closes down.
Well, I think the last train's about midnight, isn't it?
Are you going to be fit to work tomorrow? And
yes, I think so.
You're not going to be, sloping around in your bladderation?
No, I shouldn't think so.
Toxic.
I might take some whiskey on board. Might do my cold
state.
Good. Well, I have to be on air till 7 o'clock at night.
Yeah, well, it doesn't bother you sometimes.
Well, I mean, I could come.
You might not get to bed until 4:30.
I could get home at 7 in the morning, and I'd still have 12 hours to get ready for a show. What would be wrong with that?
I think it's an outrage.
How long does it take you to recover?
I think it's an outrage.
The difference between you and I is that I actually don't drink every single hour of every single day. And this must bring back a few memories to you, even from only last week.
Absolutely.
The pipes?
The pipes are calling. Different pipes, though, obviously.
It's not Danny Boy. No, that's Irish.
Not. Yeah,
this is
right,
Scotland. I mean, you would have heard this up at Edinburgh Castle when we were there on Monday.
We did. I mean, listen, I've said this for years and years and years, right? Yeah. I so admire the culture of Scotland, I so admire the culture of Ireland, and I so admire the culture of Wales.
Yeah.
But I can't think of a culture in England that matches any of that. You know what I mean? I'm a very proud Englishman, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But when you go to Edinburgh and you see guys in kilts playing the pipes, when you see the pride that men have in, dressing up. When we're on, Princess Street and all that, so many shops there sell traditional Scottish clothing.
Yeah.
Even the ski and doos, on a big rack. That's the dagger, isn't it? They put in the sock and all that.
Uh-huh.
And I just keep saying to myself, we don't really have that very, very distinctive sort of culture in England.
No, we don't. You're absolutely right. Yeah. Anyway, time is of the essence because we haven't got a lot of time here because we spoke to that last guest for a very long time. This is, of course, the Porky quiz.
It is, yeah.
You have chosen Edinburgh as your specific
excuse
subject.
Excuse me, I want to make this absolutely clear. You chose it, not me.
We chose it together.
No, you chose it. You chose it. You imposed it upon me.
All right, okay.
So, I can get 7 out of... So
you're going to start with that already?
No.
Right.
This was imposed upon me, but I've researched thoroughly.
Okay.
So I have every confidence that it's going to be, a winner.
Okay, you're predicting 7 out of 10 for yourself,
7 out of 10,
I'm predicting 3 out of 10. Now, if you get one correct,
yes,
you will hear this sound. If you get one incorrect, you will hear this sound.
Oh, you're not using your brains!
Oh, right.
Right?
Yeah.
Ready?
Okay,
Ready for question number 1.
Let's go.
What was the name of the restaurant where we dined last Friday night?
The restaurant?
Very famous restaurant, yes.
Well, it's not that famous because it's new.
It's not that new. It's been there quite a few years.
No. It's quite new. You told me it used to be owned by David Murray's son.
That's right.
That it didn't succeed and
not
therefore passed into new hands. So it's not that famous. But anyway, it's called...
Yeah.
It begins with H, right? Begins with
I
H.
can't help you on this.
Begins with H. And I think it's called Higginbothams.
Oh, you're not using your brains.
No.
Higginbothams.
What's it called?
Which is a Yorkshire name. It's called the Honours.
Well, I said it began with H.
Well, it doesn't have...
Well, I get half a point for that, don't I?
Lots of things begin with H.
No. What's it called again?
Halitosis begins with H.
What's it called?
It's called the Honours.
The Honours?
Yeah.
Well, it's not like Honours.
Yeah.
The Honours. Like the Honours list.
Yes.
It's a strange name for a restaurant.
Well, I mean, considering you were in there for quite some time,
I was
you
actually.
might have noticed it.
Yeah, okay.
Question number 2.
Right.
What is the name of the ground where Hearts play football?
Hearts?
Yes. Or Heart of Midlothian.
Yes, Heart of Midlothian.
Proper name.
Now, Hibernian who are the other group, the other team in Edinburgh, they played Easter Road.
That's correct.
And Hearts play because Hibernian won the FA Cup, the Scottish FA Cup.
That's right.
Scottish Cup. And Hearts play at. Now, hang on. I know this. I know this absolutely.
I'd be amazed if you didn't know.
No, I'm thinking aloud. Got a bit of a mental block. So Hibernian played Easter Road, and Hearts play at Hearts of Midlothian. Hang on. I'm just closing my eyes.
I'll have to hurry you.
No.
I'll have to hurry you.
Hearts of Midlothian play at. It's one word. It's not like Easter Road. It's like Hampden or something like that. But it's not Hampden.
It's Hampden
that's in
Park.
Glasgow.
It's actually 2 words.
It's.
Come on.
Hard Midlothian.
Hurry up.
Play at.
Come on.
Flowborough.
Where?
Oh, you're not using your brains.
Incorrect. It's Tynecastle.
Tynecastle. I knew it was Tynecastle.
Question number 3.
I knew it was Tynecastle.
Nicola Sturgeon, the First Minister of Scotland.
Yes.
What is the name of her official residence in Edinburgh?
We passed it, actually. We saw it.
We did.
We saw it while we were there.
Yeah.
I think it's called, believe it or not, I'm thinking aloud. Now, the Scottish Parliament is a different name to her official residence.
Well, she doesn't live in the Scottish Parliament.
No, that's right.
Where she works.
That's what I mean. I think it's called. I'm just trying to work it out. I think it's called Leaky House.
Leaky House. Incorrect.
No.
Oh, you're not using your brains.
It's called Butte House.
Butte House, yeah.
Cock-a-leaky soup, of course, is what you might be thinking of. Question number 4. Right. Can you name the road that runs from Edinburgh Castle down towards the Scottish Parliament?
Edinburgh Castle to the Scottish Parliament?
Yes.
Is that, now, I'm thinking aloud here.
Yes.
It's either Princes Street, or it could be the Mile. Not the Golden Mile. I'm thinking aloud.
I can't help you with any of this. There's no way looking at me for inspiration.
Okay. It could be North Bridge. That goes over the river, so I don't think it's that one. Or it might be that one, because it's on the other side of the river,
There's no river in Edinburgh.
What?
There's no river in Edinburgh.
There's water.
No.
Yeah, there is.
Well, there's water all around, because it's on the sea.
Isn't it? I thought we walked over a bridge and there was a river below it, wasn't
Well, North Bridge goes over the railway station.
Oh, I see, okay. Right.
I said this is one of the most amazing bridges. It doesn't go over water.
Okay. It's Princes Street.
Incorrect.
No!
Oh, you're not using your brains.
It's the Royal Mile.
Well, I said the mile. I said the mile.
That wasn't your answer.
I said it could have been the mile.
That wasn't your answer.
Well, I was thinking aloud.
You called it the Golden Mile when we did the live show. Do you remember?
I did,
in Blackpool.
Yeah.
So you got 0 out of 4. Question number 5. Who are the famous twins who made Sunshine on Leith an anthem for Hibs fans? If you ever hear them singing this, by the way, down at Easter Road, it's tremendous.
These are twins?
Twins.
Oh, now this sounds exactly the same as that song about 500 miles.
It doesn't sound anything like that.
It does. It does. No, it sounds like the same voices.
It's a much faster song.
No, it's the same voices, though, isn't it? Same voices.
I can't tell you that.
Right. Now, that group was called the... And I will walk another 500 miles and another 500, right? So if I can remember the name of that group...
Well, I can't tell you that it's the same group.
Then I've got it.
I cannot tell you that.
So that is... let me just think. That is... What were they called? They were called the... hang on, I'm just trying to think because I thought they were Irish originally, but they're Scottish, are they?
They are.
So they're called the Compatriots or something like that. Yeah. Something like that. So
you may be on the right track.
Yes, I'm getting there. So thinking aloud. I reckon that's the Protectors. The Protectors.
The Protectors. Incorrect.
Oh, you're not using your brains.
It's the Proclaimers.
Well,
God.
I knew it was that. I knew it was that.
That's 0 out of 5. So you're not going to get 7 out of 10, I'm afraid.
Oh, dear.
Question number 6.
Right.
How old is Edinburgh Castle?
How old is Edinburgh Castle?
Yeah.
Quite old.
And you may get a little bit of leeway here.
Quite old, Edinburgh Castle. Right, let me see. Edinburgh Castle. I reckon it was built in... I think it is 800 years old.
800 years old? 800. That would make it built when?
In the
late sort of mid-20th century.
No, 800 years old. It was built in about 1295 or something like that.
1295?
Yeah.
I will give you that because...
Thank you.
The The site was occupied from the Bronze Age, actually,
Yes.
with a castle present from at least the reign of David I in the 12th century.
Thank you.
So I'll give you that. I think I'm over-generous there. I'm over-generous.
No, that's brilliant.
I'll probably regret that.
And I should have got the Proclaimers, and I should have got Heart's Ground, and I should have got the Royal Mile.
Yeah, well, you didn't get any of those. So question number 7.
Yes.
What is Arthur's Seat?
Arthur's Seat?
Yes.
Arthur's Seat is the very original settlement upon which the city of Edinburgh is now built. It was the first identifiable location of a settlement in Edinburgh.
Incorrect.
No,
you're
it's not.
using
It's
your
not.
brains.
Arthur's Seat is an 822-foot peak of the mountains in Holyrood Park overlooking Edinburgh. There was never a settlement there.
There was.
No, there wasn't.
There was.
Incorrect.
No.
Question number 8. What is Edinburgh's nickname? Now, this should come as no surprise to you.
Now I think I might have already used this word already in this quiz, okay?
Really?
Edinburgh's nickname?
Yeah.
I think I've got it.
Go on.
Thinking aloud, but I will give you the answer.
Go on.
Old Leaky. What are you laughing
Incorrect.
at?
You're not
What
using
is
your
it?
brains.
It's Old Ricky.
Oh.
With an R. Not Old Leaky.
Well, hang on, that's very close. That's
well,
very
you don't
close.
get it for that.
That's very close.
You've used cock-a-leaky soup for 2 answers. Incorrect.
No.
And Old Ricky literally means Old Smoky. Because it used to be smoky. Now, question number 9. Yeah. How many people live in Edinburgh?
How many people live in Edinburgh?
Yes. And this does not include the people who come up for the festival.
Yes, okay. The official population...
I'll give you 10% either way.
Official population of Edinburgh is 387,000.
Incorrect.
No! You're not using your brains.
It's 495,000.
I thought it might
So I'm afraid you've got an opportunity now to make 2 out of 10. Okay?
Yeah.
And this regards your memory from last weekend.
Okay.
What was the name of the pub we had lunch in last Saturday?
That was...
With our good friend Grant McDonald.
I was about to say that was Grant's Pub.
Yeah.
That was going to be, part of my answer.
Yeah.
Grant's Pub.
Yeah, that's not the name of the pub, though. What was the name of the pub where you had spam chips
I did.
and haggis fritters?
Began with H. Began with H again, funnily enough.
I can't help you.
Because the restaurant was the first question.
Yeah.
That began with H. It began with H as well. No, it began with J. Began with J.
Well, you can't have it beginning with H
No,
and J.
no, it began with J.
H and J?
Oh, it began with J. I can see the sign over the
sure?
door now. I think it was called... Thinking aloud. Let me see. Now, I tell you what, his Twitter handle is at Edinburgh Pubs.
Yeah.
Okay, at Edinburgh Pubs. The precise name of the pub, Jeremiah's.
I'll give you that.
Hey! Whoa.
It was called Jeremiah's Tap Room.
Well,
to be
there
precise.
you go.
If you'd done any better, I might have given you just half a point.
No.
It was such an appalling performance. I'll give you that. For 2 out of 10, which, considering that you've just been to the place,
I know.
That's pretty appalling.
No, but I should have got... you see, I just had a mental block
2
on
out of
Hearts
10.
Ground. I had a mental block on the Golden Mile.
You had a mental block,
A mental
generally.
block on that that place overlooking...
Butte House, which we pointed out to you. The restaurant we went to on a Friday night.
Yeah. Well, I haven't had time.
I might as well have added one into what's the name of the show?
No, I haven't had time.
It's called The Two Mites.
That's right, yeah.
You could have got one for that. 2 out of 10.
Bit harsh.
Absolutely ridiculously bad performance.
Bit harsh.
Hopefully we'll have a better quiz this time next week.
No.